everybody, we are back. Welcome to another episode of More Than a Title. I'm your host, Jared Thomas, Chief Revenue Officer at Outside the Box Digital. And you know I got my brother, my brethren, your favorite CEO's favorite CEO with me, my boy Chatty-O Pastel. What's good, baby?
We in the building, man. You know, I lightened it back up because I was gloomy last week, but my barber got me right, man. Shout out to Lee from the Bronx, man. People's Choice Barbershop, one of the best barbers in the Bronx, man.
Shout out to the,
you know,
shout out to the bro.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. When you ain't got a haircut, man, you feel so down. You feel
You should have seen him last week. Y'all saw him last week looking like this. Yeah, y'all saw him last week.
He was crying a little bit, looking like the Wolf Man.
Looking like Teen Wolf and Michael J. Fox in it. All right, man. It was bad last week, man. It was a good episode, but it was bad last week. Mm-hmm. So before we start off, y'all know as usual, man, we got a great episode lined up for you guys. Before we start, shout out to you guys. Shout out to the supporters, the followers, the listeners. Thank you for all the downloads, the subscriptions, everything, man. The wide, the kind words, all that, man. Y'all keep us growing and glowing. It's because of y'all we're still here doing this thing called More Than a Title, man. We're glad to bring it to y'all. So appreciate y'all. And also shout out to our exclusive partners, the Aleve Podcast Network. So if you want more content from Black creators such as More Than a Title, make sure you download the app and support your favorite creators. You know what I mean? Shout out to Angel.
And we gonna let the cat out the bag a little bit. Because we growing and glowing, like my cousin like to say, because we've been blessed to have constant progression on the show. We just partnered up with Real Block Productions, and they will be producing the podcast More Than the Title. Real Block Productions. We got a team, y'all. We got a team, and they will be producing the podcast from this point moving forward. We got a team, and the visuals is about to get crazy. I'm letting y'all know.
If I raise up, gonna be trouble.
Trouble.
Like Jay said, I'm giving y'all 2 weeks to get y'all shit together. Good luck.
Yes, sir.
In the next 2-3 episodes, it's gonna get crazy for y'all. You know what I mean? Yes, sir.
Absolutely. So, and for the first time listeners, if this is your first time watching More Than a Title, this is a show all about talking to professionals, talking to real individuals and learning their lessons, learning about their journey, because this isn't a show about tips and tricks. The real value and the real gems is what we overcame to be where we are today. And that's the people I want to know. I don't care about your title, CEO, CFO. I want to know the real person. And that's what we created this platform for. And with that said, let's introduce this brother right here, man. I'm excited about this episode, man. This brother's bad. So he's a copywriter. He's been in the ad game for over 2 decades. He's worked at agencies, big and small, on all coasts and then some. Over the years, he's hit nearly every audience on every platform there is. If you drink it, eat it, drive it, wear it, use it in your house, he's sold it. So some of the brands he's worked with include AT&T, Aleve, Absolut, Charter Communications, the Cleveland Clinic, Coca-Cola, Ford Motors, Lowe's Home Improvement, Mercedes Benz, Nissan, Radio Shack, Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and Wrigley Jr. and Co. This brother has over 25 years experience in the ad game. He's a legend in this space, man. I want to introduce this brother, Hadji Williams, man. What's going on, my guy?
Let's give this man
his flowers. Thank you.
Yes.
Wait, as we
that
clap,
is the best intro I think I've ever gotten.
My brother.
Let me give you some more flowers. As we clap for you, just understand that I am so grateful that you didn't say Spirit or Frontier.
Oh, yeah.
Thank God you ain't fuck with the Soul Plane lines, because I did out of logic. So shout out to you, man. Yeah, you got a very illustrious career, sir. Very illustrious.
Thank you.
Very illustrious.
I've been around for a minute, so I've been blessed to work on some really dope stuff at some really different agencies and different clients, and it's been a journey, man. It's been a journey.
Yeah, 25 years in the agency game, man, ain't for everybody.
Yeah.
Nah, and you know that, I got into it young, dog. I got into it young, and I didn't even really know what I was doing when I first started, but I knew it was something that I wanted to do, and that's really what kept me going. Was let me start at the beginning. I'm from the South Side, West Side of Chicago, right? So I didn't really know anybody in advertising. When I was coming up, it was like y'all remember Boomerang?
Yeah.
Movie, Eddie Murphy movie.
Eddie Murphy?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, that was one of the first, depictions of just advertising life. It was Boomerang, and before Boomerang, it was a couple shows in the 80s called, one was called 30 something, which was an all-white cast, a bunch of what they used to call yuppies, which is cast that grew up that was born in the 60s and 50s, and now in the 80s, they got homes and they're in their 40s and they're trying to make their way in the world. So in that show, two of the guys in the show, it was a TV show, and two of the guys on the show, they were what they call creative directors. So you would see them like, you know, they have all their drama at home with, you know, with the wife and the kids and mistresses and all that. But at work, you would see them like throwing pencils in the ceiling and just kicking around ideas. And I'd see that and I'd be like that's a job.
Yeah.
And I just never forgot that. Every once in a while, you'd see a little something on TV or a little something in a movie about somebody that worked in advertising. You didn't see a whole lot, and they almost never explained it, but it always seemed kind of cool. And so I think that just those little depictions sort of planted seeds. And because, like I said, where I was from, everybody was all the adults that I grew up with hated their jobs. They all had blue collar jobs, worked for the city. You know, my pops worked for public transportation for years. My mom was a secretary and she worked in a hospital. You know, all my neighbors, all the adults in our neighborhood just hated their jobs. They came home with all these miserable stories about how they got mistreated. They were always tired, you know, blue collar stuff. You know, my friends, their dads were like longshore, you know, cross country truck drivers. So they'd be gone for like, you know, 2 weeks out of the month. And then they pull up in the rig and park the rig and, you know, next door in front of the house. And then the dad would sleep for a couple days, kick it with him for a little bit, and then back on the road. So everybody I grew up with just had these really hard jobs. And I knew that not that I didn't want a hard job, but I didn't want to be miserable all the time. Because that was what, there you go.
That's real.
I saw all the adults I saw, they just seemed like they were in just constant bad moods. They were doing what they had to do. Very few of them I saw were doing things that were really their dreams or the stuff that they would sit and talk about. Like if they could do anything, it was never the job that they had. And that was something
I'm curious too, Hadji. Quick. I'm curious. We've had a lot of people that come in the ad game, in the ad space. I've never heard somebody's come in from content, from movies and inspiration like that. Where did that passion come from? Because you're saying you see the adults that are miserable doing their job. What made you feel like that you'd be happy coming into the ad space?
Oh, I think it was two things. It was one that I always wrote. I was always a writer. I was like, you know, writing rhymes, and I used to do graffiti and stuff and just a lot of street stuff. And originally I just thought that I was going to be like an art major. I was going to be a commercial art major because I was all into graffiti. And when it came time to go to college, I went to Columbia in Chicago. I actually went, and this is back in the day when you used to apply in person. See, everybody does everything digital now, but I'm kind of an old head. So you had to physically go stand in line to register for class. Yeah. And when you were, you know, with my last name being a W and a freshman, it was like the grads got to register first. The graduate students got to register first. Then the seniors registered, and then they did it. And then by the time they got down to underclassmen, it was alphabetical order. So it was A through. So I had a whole separate day where it was just like the W's, X's, and, you know, so you literally just trying to let me get these generals and let me hope I can get something in my major. And so I went and I had my little piece book. I said, let me get these art classes. That's what I really want to do. So I'm gonna be a commercial artist, right? So I go and I finally get up to the art department where I'm gonna do my registration. And the lady there, she's at the table. She's got a little table with a little book list of all the classes and all the openings. And she said, you know, she's like, you know, what are you here for? I said, well, I'm gonna be a commercial art. I want to be a commercial artist. So I need this figure drawing 101. And I had a whole list of classes. I said, that's all I'm taking. I'm just gonna be writing and drawing. And she said, well, I don't know. Do you have a portfolio? She was real snobbish. And I said, you know what? I had my piece book and I had a sketchbook. And I said, you know what? I had some dope stuff in there that everybody likes. So I said, so let me pull this out. And I'm thinking she's just gonna be like blown away. She's gonna be like, yeah. She went through that and she's like, this is nothing. I'm not gonna sign you up for this. I don't want to waste your time. I don't want to waste the department's time. Wow. It's like, I'm not gonna do these classes. And I was just sitting there and there was a gang of people in line because everybody's registering, right? So it's packed. And so she's just saying like, you're not good enough. And then right after she said that, she said, wait a minute. And then she got up and she walked away. And then there was somebody else running registration for that department. And I just started getting heated. I'm like, yo, who is that? She can't talk to me. Like, you know, let me see somebody else. Let me see like the head of the department or somebody. Maybe somebody I can work somebody else. And they looked at me and said, dude, they said she is the head of the department.
She is the head. Yeah, you knew that. Man. I knew that was coming.
So,
she is the head of the department, yeah.
Yeah, so she was the head of the department. She refused to sign me up. So I'm stuck. I'm sitting there going like classes start like within a few days. I got to get, you know, it's like it's like you run into a brick wall, and sometimes you can fight through it. Other times you just got to figure out a way around it or another route. So
that's real.
I'm like, I got these openings. I got to get some classes. So one of the things that we needed at our school they were called writing intensive courses. So you needed a certain number of credit hours, no matter what your major was, of writing intensive courses when you graduate. So you could graduate knowing how to write for whatever your major was.
They still have
those. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So I said, well, at least let me see if I can get some of those. So I started running around different buildings, like seeing, what's still left. And so there was this one class called Introduction to Advertising, and it had a little star on it, which meant writing intensive, and it fit like the opening I needed for that day. So I signed up for that. And the professor that I got for that class gave a couple of assignments, and she was a sister. She was one of the very few Black professors I had in college. And she looked at me after a couple of writing assignments that she gave. She said, she asked me, what's your major? And I said, well, it was commercial art, but now I don't really have one. And she's like, have you ever considered advertising? And I remember I looked at her, I said, looking back, it was really stupid, but it's just where my head was at. I said, can you make more than $5 an hour? And she just looked at me. She's like, yeah, you can make a lot more than $5 an hour. And then she asked me after class, like, why do you think, like, what's $5 an hour to you? I said, first of all, minimum wage was not $5 an hour when I was in college. It was still, minimum wage was $3.85, or it's either $3.35 or $3.85. Yeah, man. So my first legal job was $4 an hour. And then the next job I got after that, the next legal gig I got after that was $4.25. And that was at Pier 1 Reports. So they paid the associates $4.25 an hour. The only people I knew in my age range that made more than that was cats that used to work at Foot Locker. Foot Locker used to hook dudes up. So if you was working at Foot Locker, you was making probably about $6, maybe $7 an hour. And then it was adults that had, their regular jobs. And then, but everybody in my age range to be honest, they was out hustling. So it was all the retail jobs, they just didn't pay that much. Like I said, Foot Locker was rare. Foot Locker paid more than minimum wage, and you got the discount. So if you was working at Foot Locker, you was a star in the neighborhood.
And you got the kicks, and you got the free.
You got the kicks. Yeah, if your boy worked at Foot Locker, there was this one guy, and I heard that he worked at Foot Locker. Bro, he was like famous. It was all the hustlers. Everybody came to him because he walked down the street. He had the little referee jersey on. We knew the days he had to go to work.
Crazy.
So, but yeah, so it was like in my head it was, okay, I'm not going to be able to do this art thing. I need to find something that is not going to make me miserable and that pays, in my head, a decent amount of money.
Right.
And so she said, you should consider advertising. So she worked with me. She became my mentor. Shout out to Paulette Whitfield.
Shout out to her.
And so,
shout out to Miss Whitfield. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Yeah. So she really guided me and got me thinking about it as a career and got me into writing. I mean, I was always a writer, but she really just kind of showed me the ropes and showed me that this was possible.
Kind of honed the skills, yeah.
Yeah, and that got me writing just, nonstop after that.
I gotta jump in real quick a little bit. Hold on, Hadji, because you're giving us a lot of info, and I don't want to backtrack too far. First of all, I just want to let you know something, right? Times have not fucking changed. Most of the people. I gotta address, because you hit a lot of things that I gotta address on. I don't want to cut you up, but I don't want to let it get too far.
No,
I don't know too many people that love to go to work. Let's talk about what it is.
Nice.
2023 right now, regardless of whenever time you came up, we're not gonna say your age. Minimum wage is a lot more than $3 an hour, though. So
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. You know what
I'm saying? But listen, right? I don't know, and this is the reality of the system that we're living in. So I have to talk about this. Most people that I know, and I'm talking like 75, 80%, and I'm not even talking economically on how much money you make. I'm talking about most people do not go to work and are happy with the job that they are doing to provide for their families. That is a fact.
Yeah.
That is facts right now.
Right? That's number one I wanted to say to you. Number two, with the college education system being a system, I was successful before I went to college. I only went to college as to be like a role model for my kids, to show them that you could go to college after you're young. Because I went to college like in my 30s, right? Just to show them that it still could be done, right? But it's still a system, and I didn't understand the system until I went through it. Let me tell you something. Even though registration is online, it almost still goes the exact same way. You have a registration date. You cannot register before your registration date, and it's the same exact system, right? Anybody that's at like pre-grad or the grad, they all get their classes first, then the next, like that, and then by the time you log on, right? Yeah, it's the same exact thing. It's computerized. No, I'm telling you, I've gone through this personally. My daughters go through it. It is. I've sat there and said, how the fuck do they expect you to actually fill your schedule with classes that you actually need? And then I realized they don't expect you to. That's part of the system. The longer they keep you in school, the more money you have to pay. The more money you pay, the more money they make, because college is a private institution that makes money, right? And they make money off of your tuition, the books. The credit card company makes money off your debt, because most college kids end up getting a credit card and end up being in debt. This shit is a financial black hole that they put you in, and they do that shit on purpose. Right? They do that on purpose. So I wanted to address that before we got too far away, to let you know that in the time that you spent out of college, guess what? Ain't shit changed.
Ain't shit changed.
The way they do it changed, but the same way, the same experiences that you experienced when you were in school is the same experience that college kids are experiencing right now.
Facts. And I would say people are not happy with their jobs. Motherfuckers be coming home looking like this.
I'm telling you. It is.
That's real talk.
You know what I mean? And
I've worked with so many people that are just still right now not happy with. They're not happy with their job. Everybody is searching for something different, for something better, something more that feels more equitable, that feels more valuable to who they are and who they want to be. And you know, the corporate grind, whether you're talking about like the 90s or the 2000s or now, it wears on you.
Absolutely.
You know, it wears on everybody, because you find yourself trying to trade. You know, they're talking about. And I think I don't even know that it's necessarily a political thing per se in terms of a party, but the most recent person I heard say it is Nikki Haley, who's a conservative running for president, that she wants to move the retirement age up to 67 or possibly 70. So you got to understand that when you start looking up, you know, what the average life expectancy is for a U.S. citizen. The average life expectancy is like 79.
Oh, I thought it was like mid 60s, 70s. Last time
it's 79, but it's lower depending. But for black folks, it's like 75.
How about this? Let's add in the fact of industry. It's super low when you add in what kind of industry you've been working on for 20, 30 years. Because when you got these rough jobs like construction and all that, it ain't no 79. I'm telling you right now.
79. Right.
Ain't no 79. I'm telling you, when these jobs, when you got these people that are doing these physically exhaustive jobs for 30, 35 years, 10, 12 hours a day, it's not 79. It's just not. No. And they know that.
So, but on average, so you say, let's say it is 79 for everybody. Yeah. You talking about working until you're 70. So you talking about you working from whatever, 20 or 18 14, or 20 to
14.
Depending on, 14. And then until you can't afford to retire until you're 70, and then you're gonna kick at 79.
Yeah,
you got 9 years to yourself, man. 9 years when you ain't working.
Let me give you the key to that too. Also, you can retire at 70. Let's call it that. You retire at 70 and get a pension from your job. Hopefully, God willing.
God willing.
Pensions are right now, right? But guess what? Our generation, if you're retiring at 70, you're not getting Social Security at 70. They're doing that because they're claiming the Social Security fund is running out. So they want you to retire at an age where by the time you get Social Security, you die a year or two later. Yeah. So they don't have to give you none of that money. That's really what you got to understand what they're doing. It's just the system. It's disgusting. It's what it is. They want you to work until you die. They actually don't care if you enjoy your job. They actually don't care if you have a career. They don't want you to take vacations. They just want you to work until you die. and that's it. They want you to
but it's up with knowing that. What are you willing to sacrifice to get that life, right? Like that's why we're taking this path that we're taking right now, right? So Hadji, to give you context, right? Like I was in corporate, I couldn't do it in 10, 11 years. I got fed the fuck. 10, 11 years. I'm just keeping it real because I played the game. And shout out to my boy Adu. He was on the show. We talked about playing the game. Yeah. Technology is a game. There is definitely a game. How you show up, how you appear, how you talk in the coffee room, your work stands out, all that stuff. And you could do all the right things, right? And somebody still not want you to go up the ladder and still not give you that look or the shine or take your work or take recognition for things you've done behind the scenes. And I was tired of it. And I'll tell you, keep it real with you, Hadji, when that started to pop off for me is when I stopped. When I stopped playing the game, when I stopped saying, I'm saying, fuck the game, man. I'm coming in here like this, hoodie on, hat on. I know my shit. My clients love me, and this is what it is. Then shit took off. But my thing is to everybody else, if we know this system, who wants to work to 70 years old, break their back, and not even enjoy it? Not even enjoy it. But what are you willing to sacrifice for that shit?
But here's the thing. It's not about who wants to do it. When you understand how they perpetuate information, when we are children, you have children now, Jared, that are still young in the school system. One of my, my youngest is still in the school system. You got to look at what they're teaching them, but more importantly, you got to look at what they're not teaching them. They're not properly preparing children to be adults. We know this already. It's not by mistake. Remember, PhDs and masters and all these fucking smart people, right? These smart people that come up with these fucking educational systems. It's not by mistake. They don't care because the longer you're a worker bee, and the longer you're submissive, and the more you fail, the more you feed the system. See, so Hadji, watch this. You said you know people that hate their jobs, right? Look, Jared hates his job. He wouldn't be here right now if he liked his job. I hated my job, and we both made money, right? We both 6 figures and all that, and we're still right here. See the difference? Yeah, that's what we're trying to explain to you, right? We are the people that you're talking about already. Yeah. That's why I said most people I know don't even like their jobs. You understand what I'm saying? But here's the thing, man. When we're talking about humanity, we are talking about, one, the act of change. People are afraid of change. That's number one. So when they get something that's good that they can build on, it's like a dog with a bone. They're going to hold on to it like this. So that's why a lot of people, they just get a regular job or they get a city job, right? City job, which they feel like is stable. And they work their time and feel like I'll worry about retirement when I get there.
Yeah,
it's a fact.
That's what it is.
That is a fact, man. You get so many people that do that. And
but the problem is, guess what? Hadji, right now, let me ask you this question. I know my answer for me. How many people do you know right now? Let's not even say 14 from working papers in high school and things of that nature, because every state is different, right? You could work. Right. Let's just talk early adult years from 20 on. How many people right now do you know that have retired that still cannot live off that one income of retirement that had to go back to work?
Wow.
Yeah.
I would say that's probably at least 40% of the people I know that are retired.
Thank you.
At least 40%.
And the retirement is different, right? Some jobs is 20 years, 22, 25, 30. Right. We just said retirement, right? So you got people spending between 20 years and 30 years of their adult life from 20 to 50, 20 to 45. And after you retire and you go, I'm done, they go, yeah, you're done with this one. Now go start a new one at the bottom somewhere else.
Yeah.
Crazy.
There are so many people that's what they're going
through. That's your fucking job, right?
Sure.
Yeah.
True.
At a higher pay, at a higher scale, at a higher title. Because when you retire, guess what you got to do? Go start somewhere else, either at the bottom or mid-tier, because now you're new to that company.
Yeah. That is so many Americans. I mean, that's a lot of people, even in the corporate world, where you put in all these years, you maybe you got some stock options, but things got, the cost of living went up, everything didn't work out exactly the way you wanted. So now you're sitting there going, you're 40, you're 50, you're 60, and you're thinking you had this golden parachute that's not quite golden enough. And now you're just sitting there, you're looking at this, I got this big mortgage payment, I got a kid that wants to go to grad school or college, and now you're sitting there going, man, now I got to go back and consult. I got to go back and do this. I got to go back and do that.
Looking at your bank account. Looking at the bank account like, what I'm gonna do?
Remember me, Hadji, me and Jared had this conversation. We talk a lot, man. And me being really like versed in money and economics and stuff, because I really studied it. I be talking to, Jared, and I be explaining to him, it's not even your bank account. You can have 2 million in the bank account, 3 million, doesn't matter. It's the very simple relation of what you have as an asset versus what you're spending as liabilities, and the cost of living increases every year. Social Security hasn't got the cost of living increase in how many years?
Oh, and in a couple decades. Yeah.
Thank you. In decades. But the cost of living and inflation rises by what? 2 to 3% minimum a year. Yeah. So again, that 100,000 you're making, that 150, it doesn't matter what you're making. If the cost of living keeps going up, but your pay or your retirement doesn't go up, then you are losing money. The value of your dollar goes down. And then when you retire, guess what? If you retire in a state like New York, taxable pension state, they tax your fucking pension.
Yep, they tax the money you already paid taxes putting it in. Now they're gonna tax it when you take it out.
You understand?
Hey man, I'm in California. I'm here in California. We're going through it.
Right.
We're going through it. You
understand? So again, it's like, if you don't understand that this system, just bottom line, this system is not designed for you to win. It's like the SAT. You don't win it. You know what I'm saying? They give you 200 points for writing your name. You've never taken a test in your life that's giving you 200 points to write your name. It's not designed for you to pass. It's designed for you to fail. They designed the test for you to fail. You know what I mean? So it's like, it's one of those situations. It's just nasty. Man. It's just nasty.
It's crazy, man. But what I'm curious too, Hadji, since we so where you left off, you said the professor that was helping you, right? She became your mentor. So how did you actually? What was that first opportunity like, bro?
I think the first thing she did that was really important, and I didn't appreciate it until I started moving in different spaces, was I went from a high school that was probably 90+% Black, but had an extremely high, college admissions rates. Like about 90% of us, if you went to my high school, about 90% of the kids, it was one of the better college prep schools in the country at the time. So most of the kids, you either went from our high school, you either went to college or you went into the military, but you had something, because that was just how the school worked. And I took that for granted. And then when I got to college was like another culture shock for me, because I went from a 90%, Black high school where you had kids that was in the projects and kids that was doctors and kids that was blue collar and street kids and all kinds of us, that we took that diversity for granted. Like today, when I tell younger people about like school, for me, they can't imagine, like they think I'm talking about like a TV show or something. I'm like, nah, that was regular. It was all kinds of us. We didn't even think anything of it. But then when I went to college was like 92% white. So it was just being treated different, like everywhere, but knowing that, okay, I just got to navigate this. So I had somebody in my corner early who saw my humanity, and she didn't really, but she also held me to a standard. She's like, I'll take you under my wing, but you're going to do the work. I ain't cutting you no slack.
That's real.
And if I get the sense that you don't want this, then I'm not going to help you. I'll help whoever wants it. That's my job as a professor, but, I'll make sure that you get, that this is possible for you. And so that was the first really important lesson that she gave me, was she just reminded me of my humanity. And that's something that we don't do enough for a lot of particularly young Black kids, Black men, Black women, Black girls. We allow them to get shaped by a consumer culture, being an advertiser, a consumer culture that commoditizes them and expects and celebrates oftentimes the worst in them, the worst behavior, the worst attributes that often just get either saddled on them or things that they're doing on their own. And then they kind of a lot of us kids are just kind of self-destructing because it's amusing and entertainment for everybody else. And you need some adult that'll say, no, you are better than this. You can do not just you can do anything, but you are better than this. You are better than the box they want to put you in. Because when they get bored with that, I know I'm kind of getting off on a tangent, but when they get bored with that, they go back home. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
They, you know, we got kids that are pushing a lot of just nonsense out in the culture, and everybody else around the world is watching it and emulating and mimicking and stuff. But then what they don't tell you is, well, these kids who they think they are their friends, is their parents don't want them acting like that. Their parents are like, nah, this is like a Halloween outfit. You put this on, you have their fun, but when it's time for you to grow up, you're going to do different. Yeah. And then meanwhile, we're the ones that are stuck going like, what happened? You know what I'm saying? Like, you know, we've allowed sort of consumerism to just cherry pick who we're supposed to be based on who it's going to support and who it's going to financially reward, who it's going to consume and make a brand out of.
Message.
That was one of those.
And it ends up just being self-destructive. You know, it just ends up being completely self-destructive for us.
We got to blame ourselves for that, though. I'm gonna be honest.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of us, and it's a lot of.
We champion it. You know what I mean? As a coach, and I'm not saying like us in general. I'm talking about as a culture. We champion that behavior. We champion that. If
we excuse it too, we excuse it. If we don't champion it, we excuse it.
It's a lot of contradictions in our culture.
Yeah, so a
lot of contradictions. Like we'll be like R.I.P. the young brother but then we'll glorify the shooter.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, right.
That's exactly what it is. That's exactly what it is. And until we get to a point where we are ready as a culture to take a stand, and till we get to a point as a people where people are comfortable with being individuals and saying, I don't care if I don't fit in, and it's never going to change. That's the problem. It's never going to change because it's cult mentality. It's if you see and you do advertising, right? Perfect. Yep. This segue right into advertising. Best way to advertise to the masses, right? Advertise to the masses, not to the individual, right? If you got 10 people, advertise to all 10 at once, right? Because even if six say no, if 4 say yes, then the 6 looks at the 4, and then the indecisive ones might switch over, blah, 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 and it works that way. But if you advertise to each one individually, statistics will show that you'll get more no's than yeses. That's how advertising works.
But you know what? I'll tell you a quick story, a little bit about that. Mm-hmm. In our business, we have, every industry has awards, right? Mm-hmm. They get industry awards, and in advertising, particularly as a creative copywriter, which is what I started out as copywriter, then worked my way up to senior level, creative director, consultant, all that.
And for those listening to, when you mean awards like the Shorty Awards, the Con Lions, the Webbies, those, just for those listening.
Yeah, so
not Grammys,
Grammys. So the equivalent is like the Cannes Film Festival. The equivalents, they have an advertising component. Those are the really prestigious ones. They also have what's called One Show Awards, Addies. These are all the big advertising awards. And what they do every year is they put out what are called annuals, which are books or collections of the stuff they won the year before. So, and agencies would subscribe to those, so you would have those in your library for inspiration, for reference, things like that. So when I was young, that was the thing. That was the dream when you were a young creative, was to get get a gold lion, get something in one of these awards books, communication annual, CA annual, get something in there. So I must have been like 20, I was probably 22, 21. I'm sitting in my little office. We had a whole library full of all these books. I was looking for some inspiration. And that was what everybody said to do. So I'm going through the books. We had a whole room that was just like all these annuals and all these stock photo books and all that. So I'm just thumbing through there, and I see this one ad, and this was an ad that had won the year before. It had won like a gold pencil the year before, and it was a young brother. Looked like he was in high school, so he might have been maybe 17, 18 years old, and he's got a gang of like medals around, track medals around his neck. He's got a bunch of trophies. He's holding a big trophy. He's got like all these trophies around him. He's standing on trophy. So this dude's like some kind of athlete. He's got on tracksuit, so some kind of track athlete. And the kid's like maybe 17, this posing, maybe 17, 18 years old. And the headline said, if you want to see how fast he could really run, wait till his girlfriend tells him that she's pregnant.
Oh,
and shit. The ad was for, and I to this day, I forget. I was so blown away by it that I forgot what the ad was for. It was for a charity or something.
I was,
but
I'm
it wasn't
offended.
geared. It wasn't geared towards black audiences. I remember it was something that ran in the Midwest. It ran like a newspaper, and it may have been for a Planned Parenthood or a hospital. I don't remember who the client was, but I remember it had won like this really big award. And I just sat there, and I remember looking at that kid thinking, yo, this is me like 5 years ago, you know? Like I'm 22 at the time. This is me like 5-6 years ago. You know, this is my, you know, some cats like, you know, and I was thinking that, and I knew who the audience was, and the audience wasn't us, but I'm still thinking that this is still how they see us, that they think this is something to joke about.
Absolutely.
And that was one of the little wake-up calls that I got. Was there were so many ads like that back in the day that were not for us, but were about us. Just like you would see movies that weren't for us, but they portrayed us the way they saw us. And
crazy.
You see that you see a lot of that. That's something that advertising still struggles with. And you see some of it coming out in some of the back and forth over DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion, and affirmative action getting overturned, and George Floyd. And you see all this sense of cultural inequity and identity issues about how we're really seen and how people really view us and our place in the country and in, you know, in whatever cities we're in or whatever industries that we're working in. And even though that ad was a long time ago, you don't see those kinds of mistakes as often, but you hear them more in conversation. You know, people know now we're not going to do any crazy ads like that. That'll get us boycotted or sued or something like that, or canceled or whatever.
But I do have you brought up a great point, Hadji. Not to cut you off, you made a great point, bro, and I would love to stick there for a second. What is it like as an ad professional, right? Now, say you're in the room with the people, it's maybe 5-6 white counterparts, right? You're in the room, you're the only black person. You see that ad. What do you say?
You know, in situations like that, you know, it really depends. Like I worked at the industry was when I started, and it's still split up this way. You have what you call general market agencies, and then you have what you call ethnic or multicultural agencies. Now, the general market agencies, they historically have been what they basically white, you know, white owned, white
full service shop.
Yeah, but they don't call them. They don't say this is a white agency. You'll never hear anybody say that. It's a general market agency, and that means like the general market, the masses. So in their mind, for generations, the masses was white, and then it was whoever was going to go along with that. So that's where the bulk of their money went. That's where the bulk of the clients put their budgets, and the bulk of their budgets would go. So you might have a client that would say, we've got a $100 million budget, ad budget for the year. That's our budget for advertising for the year. Well, literally 95 million of that is going to go to a general market agency. And then they'll take 5 of that and say, you know, maybe we'll set aside something for African American. And then they will nickel and dime that multicultural agency over everything. You know, they won't even get the 5 million. They will publicly in the trade papers and the trade platforms and say, yeah, we're giving them 5 million. But then they will nickel and dime that multicultural agency over everything. So even you can't even count on the 5 million that they told everybody that they're giving you, that they're dedicating to your platform or, you know, to your community. So I split probably half and half, probably 10-12 years at general market, 10-12 years in the multicultural space. And I go back, I've been good enough to go back and forth, you know, to work with different types of folks, different types of backgrounds. So those discussions, they're different depending on the agency. Yeah. So in some agencies, when you walk in, agencies now, when I got in the business, the stats that they were willing to share, that they were willing to make known in terms of EOC, in terms of hiring, was when I got in the business was 94% white. And that's what they were willing to admit to publicly. It was worse it was whiter when you went in.
When you was in it, fact.
Because when you went in, this is what I used to tell people, and people would think I was lying, but then other people would just sort of confirm it. That 94% white, they were counting secretaries and mailroom workers in that 6%. So it got even whiter once you started talking about the more specific you got. So you said once we take out support staff, then it's like 98% white.
Exactly. Who's on marketing? Who's on the sales floor? Who's in leadership?
Right.
It's non-existent.
Who are the creative directors? The further up you get, the whiter it got. Today, it's it's still bad. It's not as bad, but it's still it's like in the 80s. It's in the 80s.
It's still bad, and there's only a few people that are standing up. Like shout out to Walt, shout out to Dre Gray.
Yeah, Walt stands up.
Yeah, Walt stands on everything. That's my brother. He stands on a lot of things, and
he's in a position
where
he's sort of. I talked to him a little bit, and I tell him that he's sort of like Tiger Woods in the sense that he's high up enough that they can't say you're just complaining because you haven't done anything.
Exactly.
You know, and those are the black folks that because that's what they do for everybody else. They say, well, you didn't really do anything, or you were only here for 5 years, or you only did this, or you're just complaining because you didn't get hired. Walt is high up enough that you have to find another excuse. You know, Shannon Washington is high up enough. You got to find another excuse when she complains, or when Spike Lee says something. You got to, you can't say they're saying this because they haven't done anything. That's an excuse that you can move the goalposts on everybody else. And I had people for years move the goalposts on me and say, well, you haven't done anything. I said, no, go check my resume. I've done a lot. I know what I'm talking about. But, you get in certain rooms and people say, well, Hadji, you only got this far. That's all you know. Okay, well, when these other people are saying it and they've gotten higher than me, they've gotten further. All right, how are you going to dismiss what their point now?
And that's part of it. And
so that's where it takes people like Walt and Shannon, and there's honestly not very many.
Yeah.
For folks like Walt and Shannon, they did a whole documentary. There's only 10 of them. When I started, there was one black executive level, creative director in the whole country.
Yeah.
And I was fortunate enough. I used to work for him, but he was the only one at a general market agency. He was a chief creative officer at the time, and
so
he's long since retired.
Let's put it in context for the listeners. Yeah, let's put it in context for the listeners, right? So for the general marketing, so people who are not in this industry, like there's something called holding companies, right? So these are big conglomerates, right? And they have a bunch of agencies under them. So like Chad, if you're not familiar with it too, it'd be Dentsu. And then Dentsu has 20 different agencies, all different focuses and specific niches, right? One does sports, one does entertainment, one does this, healthcare, whatever the case may be, right? So basically it's that, right? So out of all of it, and there's 7 of them, right? The big ones. And there's at least 100 agencies. 8 maybe now. I think. Yeah. So hundreds of agencies. I work for 2.
So I'm trying. So every once in a while I lose count.
Yeah.
They're always merging or stuff like that. But yeah, I think there's either 7
buyouts and stuff. So only 7 black people that are in leadership and chief creative officer roles out of hundreds of agencies, only 7 black people.
Yeah.
And Walt is one of them. And he led the documentary for it. The Black Madison Act. Shout out to everybody on it.
Like I said, that's 7. Like I said, that's 6 more than when I started. When I started, it was just one dude, and I just happened to know the guy. I just happened to work for the guy.
Yeah.
And so that was the only reason I knew about him.
Here's the thing about it, really quickly, on and off. I know about the holding companies. We can go into that. That's a whole different conversation. That shit is the way business is structured, actually, in general, to insulate and isolate certain parts of their agency. So when one agency does some shit to get in trouble, it doesn't affect the whole brand. You know what I'm talking about, right, Hadji?
Yeah.
So we'll talk about that later. But we know this because it's not our world yet. You understand what I'm saying?
Right.
It's not our world. We are still operating in their world. So in their world, they're going to keep doing exactly what they're doing to make sure that we only rise but so far. That's it. That's the answer. Not only
a lot of that.
Black men, but guess what? For black women. And women in general.
Women in general.
Yeah.
Women in general. And
I give you a quick sidebar too, Hadji, because when you were saying the archive stuff, I was actually one of the first black employees at Con Lines. I was selling what you were talking about.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I was selling the archive. Yeah, so that's why I was one of the first employees selling the archive. So it'd be a big ass online resource, and I'm calling all the big holding co-ops. This is what McDonald's did, this is what you guys did, and and then it was just a hard ass sale because after the festival, nobody wanted to hear from Jared. That was it was a tough ass sale. I was the guinea pig.
You had that short window.
Yeah, that's it. You had to make it happen. But I'm curious from you because you've had a lot of experience, a lot of things. Also, we want to get to, bro. So what is one project that you're really proud of with the multitude of clients that you've worked with? What is one project that you don't mind sharing with us that you would hang your hat on today as a creative?
Oh wow, there's been a few things that I've done that I really liked. Oddly, even though I had not a good experience there culturally, I was really happy with the work that I did that I worked on this one. I'm gonna say I don't work there, so I don't care. Spectrum, which was Charter Communications, and that was the last like major piece of business I worked on. And I was brought in to do. The agency does direct response. So direct response, what separates direct response from branding is direct response is a call to action. So you see where a brand spot, you see a commercial, and it's it'll make you feel good. It gives you a sense of personality, a sense of persona that the company is trying to sell, but it doesn't necessarily direct you to do something. So in direct response, there's going to be a QR code. There's going to be a phone number, a URL to visit, a call to go buy this now, a price. We're trying to sell you something right now. And in direct response, they measure it based on, they'll measure it from week. Did we have a sales increase? We ran this spot on Monday through Friday. Did we have a sales increase that week? Did we have a sales increase that month? That's how they measure the efficacy of direct response that way. So this was a direct response agency. And the work I did there, bringing in influencers like Kevin on Stage and some of the other cats, and Tony Baker and dudes like that, and Belief, et cetera. That work ended up outperforming all the work that the general market agency did. And pretty much every spot that I did while I was there outperformed all their other agencies' work. And ultimately in this business, it's about making money. And when somebody looks at you and says, your work makes more money for us than their work, that becomes an objective.
Powerful.
That becomes an objective metrics of, do you know what you're doing and what you're worth? And I know that when I walk in the door at different agencies and for different clients over the years, not just that time, I know that even if the work I do doesn't necessarily win awards or doesn't impress, other creatives, I know clients look at me and go, Hadji, your work makes us money. So whether you want a black kid here or not, my work makes you money and you've got the numbers to prove it. So pay me.
Message.
Right on time.
You couldn't get no better timing than that shit.
And that's what it's going to be. It's like the idea of I used to have this discussion with some of the one show judges, guys that were judges some of the ad awards. And years ago, I had this discussion with this white guy he was one of the judges. And I asked him, I said, how come you don't see any black agencies really winning awards? What is that? And this is what, at the time, black agencies are winning awards now, not as much as they should, because some of the work's still great and get overlooked. But I'm not going to pretend there hasn't been progress. It's been a lot of progress. But when I was having this discussion, they were just being shut out. And not me, just cats that were doing way better work than I was doing, but they were getting ignored. So I asked this guy, I said, why is that happening? And he said, we don't care. It's about universal truth. And I said, so what's a universal truth? And he started giving me examples. And I said, that's stuff that doesn't apply to us. So does that mean the work we're doing that impacts our audience isn't worth anything? And so we would have these back and forth discussions, but about how people saw and measured value in these real esoteric ways. And that's always going to be a back and forth, a cultural back and forth of how people value what matters to you and what appeals to you versus what appeals to somebody else, and whether or not what appeals to an 18 to 24-year-old woman in the suburbs versus what appeals to a 35-year-old Latina that's, starting her own business or a business owner, and what appeals to all these different demographics. But the thing that's ultimately going to kind of level all that is, let's see them sales figures. Let's see them sales figures. Let's see them budgets. Let's see who made money for who. Because if I'm making money for you, you don't have to like it. It doesn't have to be something that appeals to you. That's not the job. The job is, did I grow your business this quarter? Did I grow your business year over year? Did this agency put money in your pockets? Because that's what you say matters.
That's exactly. But my problem with this, and this is the reason why I didn't want to become a creative, because when I was at Con, to give you context, bro, I got into the agency world because I wanted to be in that goddamn archive. I wanted to create a work. Same way like you. Yeah. I'm like, holy shit. I'm like looking at these ads. I'm looking at the advertising. Like, yo, this shit is trash. And this one, I know I could do something. I'm rapping, I'm writing, I'm creative. I know I can do some stuff, right? So I went to an agency, was a VP of sales, all that other stuff, right? But like the problem with the agency, so say for instance, we had Mary Webb, shout out to Mary. She's the creator of Flow from Aggressive. You create a creative work that is so powerful for a brand that's going and helping you, quarter over quarter, bringing you money, but your idea is not, it's not your IP. You're giving it because you're working at the agency, but it's your idea. Yeah. It makes the agency a bunch of money, but there's no additional way that you can monetize other than your name and your brand. And that's a problem.
Yeah.
That's a big problem.
That's something that when I got into business like years ago, when I saw how things worked and they would explain it to me, I would say, this doesn't seem right. No. Because I came from, like coming from more of a hip hop mindset, the young Black creative mindset. I wanted to own like you said, I wanted to own the work that I created, but the way the business is structured, you really don't. What you do when for your listeners, when you go to an agency, we do what I always call disposable, tailor-made intellectual property. Yeah. We do it for clients. So as a creative, you get hired by an agency. They pay you a flat salary, right? Whatever they're paying you, 50, 100, 150 a year. They sign a contract with their clients. And in that contract, the client takes what's called work product. So everything that you do, that the agency generates under that, usually, most agency deals, they used to be 3-year deals. And some of them, usually they're 2-year deals now. Some of them are 1 year. But whatever work the agency creates for that client under that 1 or 2 year, however long the contract is for, the client owns that work, whether they produce it or not. So every campaign that you go into and you pitch to a client or that you share, even if they reject it, even if they say, well, you show them 5 things, they're only going to do 1. They still own those 5 things that you saw. So if I show you, if I do, when we present work to a client, I might show 4 TV commercials, and of those 4, the client will say, okay, well, we like the one with the kid, so we're gonna move forward and produce that one. Mm-hmm. Well, the client still owns those other 3. They still own those other 3. Whether they decide to do anything with them or not, they may want to come back down the road and say, remember those other things? Let's see if we got something there that we could use. And whether I leave or not, it doesn't matter. The work that I did for them stays. But that's the industry standard. That's been the industry standard for 400 years. The creative is almost thrown in. I had somebody once describe it as, I'm trying to remember the guy's name, but he described it. He said that what agencies do is they throw a billable hours party, and the creative is a party favor. What they really do is they bill clients. We do these billable hours. We're a service industry and service oriented, and that's what they make their money on, markups on all these services. But the creative product, the intellectual capital, is something that the client gets to hold on to for as long as they want. And it doesn't matter if they use it or not. Yeah.
It's like being on a label.
I can't say it's bullshit.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's kind of creatively, it's a lot like a label, except they don't loan you money.
You said music, so I'm going to tie it directly into music. It's not bullshit. You have the opportunity to say no. Here's the thing.
Sure. Yeah.
We got to start taking fucking responsibility for our actions. I don't care if I'm starving. I don't care if I want a record deal to save my life. Read the fucking contract. Get a lawyer to read the contract. If you don't understand it, don't fucking sign it. The problem is we're so thirsty, and I understand it, right? We've been deprived. If you give a person depravity, you deprive them of just humanity for so long. The moment that you give them some type of niceness, they lock onto it. It's almost like Stockholm syndrome, right? Where the victim falls in love with the captor, because after a while of depriving somebody for so long, once you give them just a little taste of humanity, they latch onto it, right? Any type of agency, ad, music, it doesn't matter. When you sign on with these agencies, it's that standard in the contract to say any idea that you come up with while in the employ of ABC, whatever, is the intellectual. I'm paying you for these ideas in the moment. Not
exactly. Yeah.
Mind you, now there is nothing saying that you couldn't have came up with this idea 20 years ago before you started working for me. But if you present it while you're working for me, a music, song, whatever it is, right? And an ad, it now becomes our property.
Yeah,
even fast forward, right? Look, fast forward. Hold on, fast forward. Let me tell you, let's keep it with music. Let me tell you what they're doing now to circumvent that, because people know that they're doing that. So if you feel like you write a song and you feel like it's a banger, you know what you do? You don't pitch it to the fucking company. You keep it in the stash and say, I wrote that 20 years ago, because there's no telling on when you wrote the music, right? So what they're doing now, that was the creation of the 360 deal. That's exactly how the 360 deal came about, because artists realized that, okay, if I present an idea, whether you use it or not, you're able to keep it. I can't no longer use it, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep the bangers for myself and maybe throw you a bone here and there, and then go with another company when my contract is up and then release all this new fucking music or these new ideas or whatever the case may be. And you've seen society catch up to that. That's all it is, bro.
I get it, but it's still a gray area. With at the end of the day, you're not getting the upfront value for what your product is producing. That's just bottom line. It's not in the contract.
Salary. You are getting paid.
You're getting salary. You're getting paid.
You're getting a salary. Yes, right. But is that worth a flow from Progressive? Is that worth skippable pre-roll that Walt created? If Walt had that patent, he'd be a fucking 100 millionaire.
We can't do that.
Times over.
We can't do that. We can't do
real shit.
But we can't do if. We can't do if.
Because
we cannot do if. You know why we can't do if? You know why we can't do if? Because if we do if, because hindsight is 2020. Yes, Hadji?
Yeah.
Hindsight is 2020. Then
hindsight is 2020. But the other thing you also have to keep in mind is
we knew what we knew.
You also have to keep in mind and look at it from a creative standpoint, in that I've got a lot of industry creatives have other interests. You know, guys are writing songs, scripts, screenplays, etc. Rhymes, making all kinds of art. And you do keep that stuff to the side. You don't bring that stuff to the agency. So because then you don't want them to own it. But for these clients, there is a mindset, a creative mindset, that when you go to a copywriter's house or a commercial art director's house or a commercial photographer's house, and you look at the artwork they show on their walls, it's almost never ads. You come to my house, the awards I've won, I'm gonna keep it a buck, they're in a box in store, and I think they're in storage. Like I've never shown it. I've never had any of them displayed. They're in a box somewhere. But most creatives I know are the same way. Like you go to their house, you're not going to see like the McDonald's poster that they did up. You're going to see the artwork that means something to them. So we understand that trade-off. We're annoyed by it, but we understand that this is not, this isn't my great American novel that I gave to Nike. This is just an assignment.
But
it's just an assignment
that
Nike
don't
wanted.
know.
So,
but creators are creating, right? You don't know in the meantime, right then and there, that you're creating a fucking flow. You don't know that.
No, you don't know. You haven't. But you don't know. And like I said, that's the tension. The tension is, man, this is going to be big. But then it's also, could it be big on my own, absent of this situation? And the answer for most part is probably not.
That's the answer right there.
Now, where you really have this discussion, what you're talking about, is with content creators, as opposed to, agency creators that are on staff and getting paid by an agency to do work for specific clients. We sort of accept that. We accept that they're going to give us an assignment. It might be something really dope. They're going to own it, but I'm gonna get my stable salary every 2 weeks, and then I might get a raise, and I might get my little accolades. What you have now is this whole generation of creative content creators that are creating work outside of the agency client, paradigm, and agencies and clients are going to them and saying, hey, can you do that thing that you did on YouTube? Can you do that for us? That thing you did on TikTok, can you do that for us? That's where what Chad is talking about is going to become a problem, because now you're talking about creatives that are creating art independently and then saying, how do I monetize this fairly? Do I give up all of it for this little bit, or do I keep it myself and hope that I can monetize it in other ways? That's a bigger discussion. That's the discussion that is going to be had, from now on, because whether content creators know it or not, agencies and clients are dedicating more and more of their budgets with each passing year to digital, to social influences. They know it's not. They know the bottom is never going to fall out because we're getting more and more connected each year.
Yeah.
You know, with each passing year, we're getting more and more connected. So more and more people are creating, and they're honestly, a lot of the work that content creators do reaches more people than a lot of agencies.
Yeah.
And that's been, you know, if you see my commercial, it's because I got a media department that did a media buy to put it in your face and interrupt the TV show you were watching, interrupt the radio station you were listening to pop up on whatever website. That's why you see my work. These content creators, and when I do stuff personal stuff I do, when it's hot because people like it. It's not hot because somebody got it shoved down their throat. It's hot because people came looking for it.
Yeah.
So a lot of the
Hey yo.
To shove down.
I didn't want to say nothing. You heard me start to talk. I wanted to let him go, but I was gonna catch you when you said to shove down my throat, Hadji.
Yeah, that's what we do. That's how we do media buys. It's like I know where you was going with that, but so that's what media buys are.
We've been waiting to use it.
Y'all East Coast brothers, like you can say pause. I know you can say pause.
No, we got that one too, but you know we wanted to
Pause.
In case.
Damn, killer.
Switch it up a little bit. But let me just say this though, right? I gotta let me say this to the listeners. Be clear, right?
Yeah.
Let me tell you why human beings change, and I have to say this shit. When you are outside the fence looking in, your perspective is completely different, right? When you're on the outside of the fence, when you're looking into the fence, then things look and move in a certain view. When you move inside the fence and you're inside the fence looking to the outside of the fence, your view changes because you understand things that you didn't understand when you were outside of the fence. I'm gonna give you a perfect example, right? Listen, we do music. Jared does music. We've been doing music. Jared's a creator. He loves to create, right? Jared, if I had to guess right now, I would say, how many songs do you have in the archive? Minimum 300 songs. Yes or no?
Yeah, easy.
Okay. Let's just say you didn't win a Grammy. You didn't do anything with these 300 songs. So in the process of however long it took to create these 300 songs, 2 years, 10 years, whatever, technically you've won no awards. It hasn't gone anywhere. Anywhere in that archive is a flow, is a Chris Paul, is a banger, but it hasn't moved, right? Now, you shift the perspective. You get with a company. Not only are you getting paid a salary, but you are getting paid a salary. But not only that, but now you have the company's resources behind you. All of the things that you might have been missing as an independent artist, the marketing, the promotion, the distribution, you now have with a major industry that's going to put you in stores, put you in people's faces. I'm going to say it, air quote, shove it down people's throats, and then it wins an award, right? Then it wins an award. Now, do you have the same outlook on it?
Absolutely.
No,
my son can't eat those plaques. No, fuck those plaques. I'm from my because you're I'm keeping it real. Because at the end of the machine means nothing without that hit. If I'm Drake in that situation, you hit me with the marketing and all that other shit. Bro, I'm
just gonna disagree, and I'm gonna tell you why I'm gonna disagree. Because the machine is everything, and the hit is not. The machine makes a hit a hit. The hit doesn't make the machine a hit. If you don't know that, that's a whole different conversation. I'm gonna say it again though. And I'm gonna say it in layman's terms, right? You can be a superstar with a shitty team and never make it, and you could be an average person with a superstar team and get way further than that superstar ever made in his life. It's the machine that pushes it, not the material.
The good music content will always rise to the top. That's why there's organic people like Benny and people who are independent who rose to stardom because good content rises.
Let me ask you a question. We're not talking 1%. We're talking the masses. How many content never gets seen? How many basketball players that was better than Michael Jordan never made it to the NBA? So your statement is not true.
There's mad different variables that attribute to that. It's mad different variables. You go to jail, you ain't gonna be fucking Michael Jordan. You can't say that. Hey, you got to give it context. It's not a broad blanket statement. No, you're not doing that. You're not doing that.
It's a blanket statement.
What's wrong with this guy? Am I getting there?
What it says is, no, it's whether you want to agree with it or not, because you have your own unique perspective on it. But the reality of the situation is, how many people every single fucking day, let me break it down to the most simplest form. Hadji, how many times have you either talked to somebody or you yourself had an idea in your head that you said, this is $1 million idea. This is $1 billion idea, right? Way before it ever came out to the masses. Never, I don't care what the reason is. never did what you had to do to bring it to the masses, and then see your idea 10 years, 5 years later, somebody else's idea 5 years later, and it's the same exact idea that you had, and now it's $1 million brand or $1 billion brand. What's the difference? The difference is it's the same fucking information. It's the same idea. It was the machine behind pushing the idea to the masses.
It's not an apples to
it
apples.
It takes both, and it also takes, it takes resource. Like, I know a guy who, this happened a few years ago. He had worked on Spider-Man, actually. He had like this whole thing for Spider-Man, and it just didn't get, and it was like, maybe he had done this. It was a story floating around Hollywood for a while, but I actually met the guy, and he had a script. Like a lot of screenwriters have these different scripts, and he had a Spider-Man script, but the timing was something that at the time there wasn't a big demand for it. It wasn't a big thing. Mm-hmm. And years later, when it became a big thing, they did Spider-Man movies, and it just really blew up, but it wasn't his, because he hadn't gotten
crazy.
He hadn't really gotten into the studio. So it was like he had this script, and the script was really dope, but the timing was off. It just wasn't, superhero movies just were not popping at that point. But this was something he was kind of early, but he couldn't get it in the hands of the right people at the right time. And then when it kind of popped off, it was a little like what he wrote, but not really. It was a little different. But it was one of those things where he always told himself, like, if I had that chance, if I had that machine behind me, if I had been able to get this in, that would have been life changing.
But there's a lot of different variables, once again, versus working on a brand versus me doing. If I'm doing a song, I'm going to write a song, whatever. Mm-hmm. I got a beat. I got this in my head. The label may provide a beat. I'm only going to come up with a flow from Progressive if I'm working with this agency. I'm not going to be thinking about flow or be working with Progressive.
Exactly, because those are the
point. I disagree with that.
You would. Where would you come up with a flow from Progressive out of nowhere? You won't, unless you're working with Progressive.
It's not out of nowhere. People get inspiration in the weirdest places, in the weirdest spaces. You could have came up with that idea. I'm not being funny, at a fucking funeral or something, like at the time where people were like, Nick, when did you come up with this? That's the thing about inspiration, bro. It hits you when it hits you. It is not determined by a specific parameter, bro. You've written songs in this situation, you've written songs in this situation, and you've written songs in this situation. Yes or no? Completely different parameters, right?
You're missing my point, bro.
You are missing my
Chad,
point.
I think you're missing what he's saying, is that there are it's really two different disciplines. The discipline to create flow from Progressive, or Mars Blackman's, what Spike did with Michael Jordan back in the day, or any of the stuff that I do, that comes because clients give us very specific assignments with very specific requests. I promise you, I am not sitting at home just thinking up, clever headlines because I'm bored. That's work. It's, there's a difference between the guy who's a chef experimenting in his kitchen and the dude that's flipping burgers at McDonald's. He's flipping burgers at McDonald's because there's very specific requirements, very specific ingredients that they're asking for. He's got to make a very specific thing. When he goes home, he's cooking up something serious because he's free to do it the way he wants. But when he's working at McDonald's, he's going to make what they're telling him to make. That you're not going to, I don't believe anybody's going to come up with flow from Progressive or any of the commercials you see. That's just not how ad creatives work. We're not sitting around that's work. That's work. You get the RFP, that's work. But what he's talking about is saying, what you're talking about now is, can you create a song from anywhere? Yeah, you could come up with flow anywhere, but the chances of you saying, what would I ever do with this? What would I ever do with flow from Progressive? Would never. It's like you wouldn't care enough to push it. It's an ad. It's something
that's not what I'm saying. Something. Let me explain what I'm saying. If we're talking apples to apples, oranges to oranges, I was using music as an example, but let's talk about, if you're talking ads, right? If your mindset is an ad agency, real quick, I design ads. Just because you do something doesn't mean that somebody else's process is the same. That's it. That's the answer. It's not an if and a maybe. Like I write my rhymes down. Some people think of it in their head. Some people, you understand? Everybody's process is different. What I'm saying is just because you're not doing something doesn't mean that somebody else is not. If somebody's working in ad space, you might not take your work home. Somebody might live for their work. Somebody might not have a family. Somebody might not have distractions and kids to take them away from it. They might be hungry and they might go home and it's work 24/7 for them. So you can't put your preference or your work, you know, how you do things on them. How they do things is how they do things. What I'm saying to you is when you are creative, when you are a creative mind, then you always create. That's the answer. I'm getting. That's all I'm saying. So, if somebody wanted to be an advertiser, if I wanted to be an advertiser, when I leave work, I'm coming home still thinking of my own ideas, especially if I want to come up with a banger that I might want to hold close to the breast that I might not want to give to the company. I'm gonna think of something crazy that maybe has never been done. All I'm saying is Flow from Progressive wasn't the first idea that was pitched. Her name is Mary Webb, right? So I can guarantee if we call Mary Webb and say, was that your first idea? She's going to say no. Flow from Progressive just happened to be the one that took off because the machine pushed it to take off. Flow from Progressive is no different from the Verizon "Can You Hear Me Now" guy. He's no different from Steve from Subway. He's no different.
But the difference is those are, you know, Flow, those are actors. They didn't create those ideas. There's a creative team that creates that work, and it's based on a creative brief that they get from a creative director that they get signed off from the client. So the actor didn't do that. This creative team that's hired to do it. And the discussion that we have as creatives, whether you're a creative director or a little lower, is, and we just accept this, that's the game. The game is, I am going to trade a salary. I am going to trade the comfort of a salary with somebody saying, will you channel your creativity for this client 52 weeks a year?
That's it.
Yeah. Do I have creativity that comes out in other ways where I'm painting, making music, you know, writing books and screenplays, etc.? Yeah. Am I going to bring that stuff to work? Maybe not. I'm good enough to separate. Like I got a mindset that I go in when I'm doing ads. I got a mindset that I go in when I'm writing poetry, when I'm writing screenplays, when I'm writing books. Those are whole different things. And I learned early on, don't take anything to work that you want to take home, because once you bring them rhymes through that door, those are theirs.
That's what I'm saying.
Once you bring that novel idea through the door and show it to a client, that's theirs.
And that's what I get. It's the trade-off, right? So if you don't have a banger, cool, right? Because they're going to take the cost of that. They're going to take the loss of that, right? But if you get something that 100, 200x is that, right? They Flow from Progressive with the same agency that created the idea 29 years later, whatever, how many years later, right? They're in partnership. They're in bed for life, right? Guess who's not there no more? Mary Webb. So there should be a royalty or something like that. That's what I'm saying. That's my argument. I'm saying I'm not saying what you're wrong about creativity.
I'm not knocking that. Only thing I'm saying is I want to play devil's advocate because I was a worker before I became an owner, and I'm not going to sit here. I will not sit here and say I have the same perspective when I was a worker working for a company than when I started owning a company and took over the responsibilities for running the company. When you come to work, Jared, as an advertising guy, when you had the braids and the big suit on and all that and the products, guess what? You walked into a building, the lights was on, the electricity was on, the internet was on, your computer was there, the desk was there, the insurance was paid. You didn't worry about none of that. You didn't incur none of those courses. That's what I'm saying. It's just a different perspective. I understand how you feel when you're a worker, but I got to play devil's advocate to say, now you own a company, Jared. If we hire a person tomorrow, if we hire Hadji tomorrow to do a work for us tomorrow, and he produces something that ends up being a banger for us, are you not going to want to own that? The answer is yes, because we pay.
I would own it.
But I would have to accept that arrangement. I would accept that arrangement. This is what you paid me to do. We negotiated a salary or a project fee, and that I.
But I'm with you, Hadji. But guess what? Those big agencies, guess what? They're getting $5, $10 million, $15 million bonuses. Those CEOs. I would break somebody off with that.
Yeah, but Again,
I'm
what you're
different than
talking,
every
Jared,
girl.
is you're talking
conversation, bro.
I'm different than every
that's
girl.
the discussion that's a different conversation, but that's the discussion that's going forward.
Yeah,
we tried having that discussion years ago, and where we netted out as creatives is we netted out where Chad is, which is, look, we took the salary.
That's it.
Took the salary, so
That's it.
this is theirs. This is the work, what we call work product. That's what it is in your contract. It's work product. Now, if you don't want them to have that as work product, then you don't bring it through the door. You come up with different ideas that you're willing to part with.
And then, but that's a gift and a curse. That my name is on it.
Yeah.
So now I'm gonna give you some trash.
Let me ask you a question. Look, let's just talk. Let me
but for
take
Jared, this is what's going on.
Now I gotta take these off.
Oh, he's gonna take the glasses.
What is the nature of work? You are trading time for money. Your time for money. That is what the nature of any job. I don't care what you do in America. You're trading your time for money, right? 8 hours, 10 hours a day. What are you valuing your time at, right? So any job in America, Jared, flipping fries, right? Like you said, flipping burgers, making French fries, corporate, lawyer, it doesn't matter. What you're saying is an hour of my time, of my life, taken away from my family and me not being able to get that hour back in life, period, because you die every hour, every minute, or every second you breathe, you don't get that back. This is the value I put on that. Once you put a value on that and somebody says, I accept, it is up to you now to just show up and do the best that you can at that job, because you are asking for somebody to pay you a decent salary to do a decent job.
Agreed. But it's also the business, bro. We sat here on this podcast a couple months ago and listened to Mark Keelan's create HubSpot Academy that created and propelled that brand to $1 billion brand. And he told us on the show that he still has kickback because of that, because the business helped him and negotiated that.
But hold on.
Right. It's individual. It can be that is all I'm saying. We accepted it because I'm working. We don't got to accept that shit.
Yeah, but here's the thing.
When you guys are now, you don't have to accept it. As an employee, you did.
Yeah, but when he came to HubSpot, Hadji, he had the option to say, watch this. See, this is the problem. We mixing apples and oranges. If I go get a job tomorrow at 44 fucking years old with the experience that I have now, it's a different conversation than when I'm at 20, Jared. If I go to a job right now, I say, listen, I know what I could do for you. What can you do for me? What's your retirement plan? What's your package like? What's my work environment? I'm
talking apples to no. Can we just stay on? I want apples to apples, bro. If I created something that gave you $1 billion in revenue, $1 billion in revenue. If I created something, I don't care what it is.
All right, so let me ask you a question right now.
Then you know what? You know what, Jared? This is how this would work then. Let me tell you how this would work. This is your podcast right now. This is your business.
Right now,
and I'll parallel this to something to a project I had years ago with it's a much longer story, but I'll give you the simplest version of it. Worked for the client was a major home improvement brand. It was one of the two big ones that you're thinking of.
Yeah.
This was a black celebrity who had a radio show, had a very big radio show. This client wanted to reach their audience, so they wanted to be the exclusive sponsor of that show. They were effectively going to be partners in that show, bringing in revenue. They wanted to almost like split, but they basically wanted to almost own that show. So this celebrity says, well, what's in it for me? Client wants to pay them as an endorser. In exchange for that, they're going to have equity in the show. Celebrity pushes back and says, but this is mine. I kind of started this without y'all. So whether y'all are here or not, I still own this, right? They're like, well, no, not really. If you go with us, then we're going to have to have some say in your guests. We're going to have some say in the language. We're going to have some say in stuff. So the deal falls apart because the celebrity says, I want to own my show. I don't want to give that up. That's kind of like where things are now, where you have content creators saying, I can do one of two things. I can keep creating this content independently on my own and then negotiate deals the way Chad's talking about, where I decide how much of this I give up, if I give up anything at all, or if I do something totally separate for you that's like the thing you like, and let y'all own that, but I still get to maintain. Now, for me, as historically as an employee, once I sign my name on those NDAs and sign those work agreements, I have to accept the fact that, hey, you're going to pay me $100,000 a year, but everything I come up with when I walk through that door belongs to y'all. Whether even if you fire tomorrow, everything I did yesterday is still yours.
Message.
But guess what?
That's the trade-off we make,
and that's the trade-off that you're still deciding. Because I just said a white man who came on this show and negotiated that. So
that's what you negotiate that going in. But once you're in,
no. That wasn't.
You can't change it once you're in.
That wasn't negotiated going in.
Hold on. Let me ask you a question, Jared. You are a owner of a company. Let's talk business real quick, and we're gonna get this out the way. You are officially an owner of a company. If you hire an intern or an employee for any reason, they come up with an idea for this show, more than the title, right? Mm-hmm. This thing takes us from wherever we are to 10x that. Now, in the contract, because we're going through something right now, just to give you perspective, we're talking about contractual obligations. In the contract right now, you're just required to pay this employee his salary. If the employee now comes back and say, I want 10x my salary, 15x my salary, because you got 10x my idea.
And it will be up to my discretion as the business owner to decide what I want to do. And what I would do is break them some off.
But you time out, but you just answered your own argument.
It's up to my you're arguing a point, bro. You're arguing a point. I know that. We're owners, this and the third, bro. I know business, yes. We get to decide. If I sign the paper, it's up to the company's discretion. Some companies operate differently than others. We know this. So what I'm saying is most companies operate under what you sign, bro. Under what you sign. Remember, you can be held to that. But do you think there's not people that's coloring outside the lines?
All I'm saying is this, right? Yeah. I'm not listen. We're talking business. Business is business, right? Let's just talk business. If you sign a contract, like Hadji said, you have worked for other companies for a specific salary. You were more than happy and you were more than proud to get that salary when you got it. And your ideas and whatever you sold, like you said, I sold 2.2 million. Yeah, but what if you'd have sold 200 million and they still told you no?
It'd be a different conversation at that point.
But here's the thing: but you missed it though. Before you sold that 2 million, you sold zero, bro. Before you sold that 2 million, you sold
it's not apples to apples. Because guess what? I get a commission as a salesperson. You keep going apples to oranges because I'm getting a commission. If I sell 2.2 million, I made 100 packs on that.
That's a fact.
He makes a 2.2 million deal or goes 100 billion. He gets no royalty on that. You cannot compare the two. It needs context.
No, I understand that as a person that is, but how do you get commission on that? Is that not in your contract?
No, that's the point I'm saying with creatives.
No.
That's my whole argument.
Nah, you missed it.
Well, Jared, what you're talking about is somebody's moral.
You have to
moral choice,
commission has to be in your contract.
No, commission is in my contract, but it's not in creative's contract. So if you create a float and I'm getting $200,000 salary and I make you something that's worth $1 billion and the CEO takes a $10-15 million bonus off of my idea and can't break me off a little something, that's a problem.
It's not that he can't. It's just
he chose not to.
Maybe they chose not to.
That's the funny thing is both of y'all are right. What Chad's point is Chad's going by the letter of the deal. What's the deal? What are the terms we negotiate? That's what and Chad is right in a business sense. You are the only obligation that boss has is what did we put in writing? What did we agree to?
That's
where Jared is coming from. Where you're coming from is, you know what would be dope if you did? It'd be really dope if you did this. What Chad is saying is that business-wise and legally, I'm under no obligation to do this. All I'm obligated to do is what I paid you to do.
Agreed.
If we put this in writing and discuss that you're gonna get a commission or that you get a bonus based on performance, then you get one. If it's not in the deal that you agreed to, I'm under no obligation to do it. And if you wanted to sue me for that, you would lose.
Exactly.
Now, Jared, what you're saying is that morally he should. It would be great if this takes off, even though I didn't say I would pay you. If it takes off, I'm gonna break you off. If that business owner chooses to do that, if that client chooses to do that, that's great. Most clients, to Chad's point, they don't do that. You have to negotiate next time. That's why a lot of agency deals are 1 to 2 years. And then what the client does and what the agency does is they go, hey, you didn't break us off last time, but the price of a break just went up.
Absolutely. It should be nothing for the creative industry as a whole to put a performance-based incentive in contracts universally. This should be nothing.
That's a great idea. That's a great idea. And
what that's what I'm saying.
I'm not arguing that. Guess all I'm saying to that is it got to be somebody to do it first. That's it. That's all I'm saying.
That's all I'm saying.
Hadji, to give you the more context in that, I'm a military guy. Anybody that was ever in the military, I'm a Marine. Anybody that was ever in the military that went and served and went to war overseas or whatever, my veterans, I'm enlisted. Enlisted will do all of the fighting. Officers don't fight. They don't fucking fight. They stay in the fucking command center and give commands, and we go door to door and we get bombed. You understand? You talk to any veteran or whatever, but when the awards come down, when they say who won the war and who did this, shout out to General Custard and General Mustard,
General Patton,
General Mayonnaise. You know what I'm saying? General Coleslaw.
Hey, yo.
The general.
That's all I'm saying, right? I'm not arguing with Jared. All I'm saying is this, right? I don't want to get I don't want to get the message confused.
Yeah.
You go to school, you get an education, you get a job, or you apply for an internship, right? Or an internship or on-the-job training as an apprenticeship to learn a job. You accept a salary, and all I'm saying is you accept the terms and conditions with that job. All I'm saying is at any point in time, at the point where you start, you can say, this is what I want, and the company can say yes or no. And it is up to you to say, I'll accept your yes and go, or I accept your no and change my offer. But once you accept, then don't come back 20 years later complaining that you did a phenomenal job, because then you can't turn around and say I was a great worker. Because you was a great worker, you were supposed to be a great worker. That's what I'm paying you for. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying.
I totally get that.
So now we're talking about work, right? So Hadji, right? We work, right? Jared, me, you, construction. We talked about this. I work 12-hour days, 14-hour days. Hadji, 16-hour days. Sometimes I don't turn down overtime. We used to call it the 40-40 club. 40 hours regular, 40 hours overtime. I used to sleep in my car, Hadji, right? I used to sleep in my car. I missed a lot of big events in my family's life. I missed weddings. I've missed funerals. I'm being honest with you, right? I've had people mad at me, and I said, I got to get this money, right? Because if I turn this down and I get fired, right? Because I work in this industry that's so fickle that I could turn down one day of overtime. I could have 1,000 hours. It doesn't matter. I can turn down one day of overtime and a guy get an attitude because I turned down that one day. And if he's in a position to fire me, I get fired. And I make your event, but how do I support my family now? How do I support my livelihood now? Are you going to take care of me at what I'm used to making because I came to your event? So we trade a lot of our life force, our life energy, our substance for work, for monetary value to try to survive in this world. And it is very difficult to maintain a family structure within doing that. It's very difficult. You lose yourself in work.
You do. You lose yourself. You lose people that.
Yeah, man.
I mean, that was one of the things me and Jared talked about before we started was, the ad business, when I got into it, and it's still true today, it's still one of the things that everybody complains about, or most people complain about, is the hours. You can work, you talk about a 40-40 club, people don't take you seriously if you're not putting in 70 plus hours. The client will say, I've had clients say that we work weekends, so you're going to work weekends. We're available 7 days a week, so the agency has to be. And as much as they'll tell you that you have a 40-hour schedule and then weekends off, or et cetera, all of that is contingent upon whatever the client says. If a client calls you on Christmas Eve, it's like the old, Christmas Carol thing. It's like Scrooge. You work in Christmas. You work in Christmas Eve. Yeah. I've worked Christmas Eve in the past. Like, I've had clients that have done that, where they've called you, where I've gotten calls like, literally morning of Christmas Eve, and they're like, "Hey, Hadji, you got to come in." Like, for what? And and then they, but so that's always been part of this business, regardless of your background, whether black, white, small agency, big agency. That's always something that's always been part of this business, is that you're going to work these crazy hours. And at some agencies, not as much. At other agencies, we used to call them sweatshops. Yeah. The sweatshops, those were the ones you wanted to stay away from, because that was their MO. That was their philosophy, was work. Always available. Yeah. But you have a lot of clients that particularly whether that client is a retail client and they have that mentality, you know, of their store level workers. So they have that mentality for all their vendors and for all their partners that, you know, we're open. You know, I had a client that they were a food processing company. So their plants were open 364 days a year. They closed for like a half hour on Christmas and they were open all the other times.
Wow.
So their mentality was that their agencies had to do the same thing. They expected their agencies to be at least on call, if not working on something. They had no problems giving you assignments.
Did you say a half hour, not even a full hour on? You said a half hour?
I meant a half day. A half day.
Okay. I'm sorry. Because I was like, that's insane.
A half hour, but it was a day.
Right.
And we're open. They would shut down for a half a day to turn off the machines, reset stuff. And then, but you know, so for about like, I think 6, maybe 10 hours, they were closed. They would close on, it was usually Christmas. It was usually Christmas, New Year's Eve, but about 6-10 hours, they would close and then they were back up. And so that was 364 days a year. But their agencies had the same, you know, they expected their agencies to work that way because that was how they worked. So in this business, you know, you go through things and most of us don't think that that's going to happen to us. Whatever industry you're in, you think, okay, I'm going to be the one that's different. I'm going to be the one that, man, I'm shutting off at 4 o'clock on Friday. I'll see you on Monday.
Facts. Tell us your name on it.
And then what happens is you start to get that reputation for you know, between that and maybe they don't, you know, you don't have the benefit of the doubt for other reasons that, oh, well, you ain't taking this job seriously because you only want to work 40 hours a week. You know what I'm saying? You're not in line for that, you know, account, you know, you're an account exec that wants to be an account director. How are you going to be an account director if you ain't going to work, if you ain't going to give up your Sundays? You know, how are you going to be, you know, a media director or run the media department if you ain't willing to give up your Sundays or your kid's softball game, or, you know, everybody's got to miss something.
That's real.
And I remember one year I had a boss she was Jewish, and I didn't even really think about the fact that she was Jewish. She wasn't hiding it from anybody. It's just something that we hadn't really discussed much. And one day she was just all upset. And I asked her what was wrong. And she's like, they want me to come in tomorrow. And she was a creative director. And they said, well, the client wants me to come in tomorrow. And it was Saturday. And I said, well, that's okay. I don't get it. It's like Saturday. And she's like, no, she's like, I need to go to synagogue.
It's a day.
And I was like, oh. And she was like, I said, so well, what you going to do? And she was just all upset because she was like, I ain't been to synagogue. I ain't been to this. She had been blowing off all this stuff that mattered to her. But the client was like, you want this money or not? We need somebody that we can count on. So can we count on you or no? And so she had to choose between work and, you know, work in the God she serves, you know, like I could be in synagogue or I can be trying to sell this soda, you know, try to sell this name brand soda. And everybody's got to go through that. I mean, and obviously you know, that's kind of one of the things that got people talking that I wrote about was just how much I had to go through that.
Yeah. And
it was an unbelievably tough because when my wife got sick, we didn't know what it was. You know, she was a social worker. She was one of the smartest people, most compassionate people I've ever known. And she started getting sick with, you know, stomach pains and stomach cramps. And, you know, we weren't sure what it was, thought it was maybe some, you know, you start small. It's something you ate. It's, you know, it's cramps, it's whatever. You go through all of that. And it built up over a few months. And finally she went to a doctor. They told her it was one thing that seemed like something that was pretty fixable. And it turned out that they didn't really know what it was at first. And this was probably spring of 2021. Wow. And they started finding lumps and spots But they thought they were removable. You could go and have the surgery, have them taken out, and it should be, if not okay, at least know what we're dealing with. And skip ahead, it turned out that this was it was an aggressive and very rare form of GI cancer, of gastrointestinal cancer. And it was a type that they were telling us it was really hard to diagnose, that it usually gets confused with other things. There was no way to test for it. So it's not even something you could screen for because it's pretty rare. And it's extremely aggressive. And so while that's going on, I'm dealing with this work stuff. And, it's a client that wants you to work all the time and always work all these hours. And the whole time in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, and even, my wife is thinking that, that whatever this is, it's, we're going to beat it. But she started seeing just how badly I was treated at work. And she's like, I hate that you work there. It's like, I hate it for you.
Yeah.
Because the backspin a little bit, we were blessed during COVID that neither one of us, the one good thing was that neither one of us had gotten laid off. She was like I said, she was a social worker, and that was deemed an essential. You were deemed an essential worker by the state. So your job was protected. And I was cranking out work, so they weren't getting rid of me. But it was a lot of calls. It was a lot of, everything. You were doing everything out of office at home. Yeah. And so she started listening in on calls and listening in on conferences. And she just couldn't believe, how they were talking to me and how they were talking to other people. She's like, are they allowed to do that? Because she had no point of reference for how the ad business worked. She was a very compassionate person and somebody who dealt with, when she was dealing with people that were dysfunctional, it was because they had emotional issues, drug problems, all the stuff you deal with when you do a social. So to see people act like that were just kind of jerks, and I don't even feel like cursing about it, but that were just like that, that was just confusing to her. Wow. But when she started seeing it at first she wouldn't believe me. I tell her like stuff I was going through. She's like, nah, people don't act like that. They don't act like that at work. Like they get fired. Mm-hmm. And then I let her listen into a few of the phone calls, let her sit and watch some of the chats, and she'd be like, wow. Like she was mortified. She was like, you got to get out of there. You cannot stay there. This place is just tearing you up. And we had things we wanted to do financially. We, buying a house and expanding the family and all that. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to suck it up, fight through it, another year or two, then I'm going to dip. Once I get us, how it is, once I get us where we need to get, then I'm out.
Wrap, yeah.
Yeah.
It's the game.
And so that's always the plan. Yeah. And that did not happen. That, God had other plans, man. We woke up one day and it was like, next thing you know, you go from arguing with specialists and oncologists, and then next thing you know, you're doing palliative care. You're doing palliative care, and it's just that, you and a handful of family members, and you're in the house she grew up in, and y'all are just spending your last days together. And when it finally, and for a while I just, I took time off work, and I would periodically check in and say, everybody's, this isn't the most important thing, but everybody's good, right? And y'all understand what I'm going through. You understand this, right? And they're like, oh yeah, you take all the time you need, blah, blah, blah. Which of course turned out to be a lie. They had real problems with it. They had problems with people taking time off. They had problems with, they didn't appreciate the work that I was doing or the work that other people were doing, because there were other people that were going through not the exact same thing, but that were just being mistreated too. And it's something that was just really, something that's just common in the industry, where you get clients, you get agencies that they don't value or respect their workers past a certain point. They just see you, after a while, they see you as a number, or they see you as a cog that needs to fit a very specific need. And if you can't do that exactly the way we want it, then we don't need you. And they will tell you the opposite. They'll tell you, oh, we're a part of a family and it's a culture and we're trying to do things different. And they will say they'll say all the right things, but when nobody's looking, they will do all the wrong things. And advertising is different because, we're talking about this, earlier when I told you I was inspired by, some movies and TV shows. You don't see a lot of TV shows about advertising. You had Mad Men and you've had, Blackish, obviously that was popular, and Mad Men, but you don't get a lot of TV shows about advertising because the average person walking down the street doesn't understand how it works. Yeah. You get a lot of cop shows because everybody knows what a cop is. Everybody knows what, a nurse is. So you're going to get a lot of hospital dramas. They don't have to explain that to people. So those shows always do well, but you don't get a lot of shows about advertising because most people, like if I told you that an account exec is on cocaine, you don't know if that's good or bad. If I tell you a cop is on cocaine, well, I might want to see that because you know what a cop is. But
account executive is just Tuesday. Just Tuesday.
Yeah, you don't
like
Tuesday.
Wall Street. That's the Wolf of Wall Street, right?
Yeah, there you go.
Wolf of Wall Street. He's like, oh, ain't all of them on cocaine?
Yeah. Right. You don't know what a strategic planner is. Somebody's got to explain it to you so you don't get that drama. But so the thing that happens in the ad world is the average person doesn't understand how it works. So it's hard when they hear people in advertising complaining about it or talking about inequities in it because they don't know how it works. So the flip side of that is that it gives a lot of people cover for a lot of, dirty dealing, a lot of bigotry, a lot of inequity. And, in some cases, a lot of injustice because the average person walking down the street, if I tell you something happened to me in advertising, the first thing I got to do is I got to explain to you how an agency works for you to even understand that something's being done wrong. Yep. Then after I take, a half hour to explain it to you, now maybe you'll understand why they did what? See, now that makes sense. But that's why so many people, that's why so many people in advertising, that's why so many people in advertising don't really, you try and talk about it on LinkedIn and podcasts and things like that, and you end up sort of preaching to the choir. Like there's only people that understand the business that already know when something's not functioning the right way. But the average person walking down the street, they don't know. The civil rights activists, they don't understand the business. So, and I got a bunch of funny stories about what happened when we tried involving some of them. But
can I ask you a quick question too, Hadji? I'm just curious, like when the situation happened, first of all, thank you for sharing your story, bro.
Absolutely.
Like thank you. Like, I'm curious, like, and they started acting funny because they do that all the time, man. So when they found out the news, how long did you stay with that company? I'm just curious.
I got let go on, she passed on August 12th, 2021. So my boss called complaining about a whole bunch of other stuff. And then, so on August 12th, 2022, he called, it was like he called on the anniversary and I thought he was calling to see how I was doing. And I was already back to work by this point. I had been back to work for most of the, for at least, I went back to work pretty much, I want to say November, December of 2021. So I was basically out August, September, most October. So around November I went back. And so I was back working. And then on that particular day in August, I thought he was calling to just see how I was doing because I hadn't talked to him most of that morning. So I thought, so when the phone rang, I'm just like, oh, it's like he wants to say, well wishes or something. And it was like, nah, he just sort of launched into this thing. And I'm just like, you're for real, right? Like, wow. Okay, so then why? So I'm asking him like, okay, so why? And I'm pretty calm about it. I'm just like, so why? Wow. He gives me a bunch of nonsense, stuff that people were saying behind my back that we both knew wasn't true, but I also knew he wasn't pushing back on any of it. You know, it was things we had discussed about being on set on commercial sets, which he knew why, you know, my decision behind that, and everybody knew my decision behind that. And they said it wasn't a problem, but now suddenly it was. And so I just sort of knew what it was, and then that was pretty much the end of the phone call. It was maybe 2 minutes, not even 2 minutes. And
not even 2 minutes.
Wait, let me wait.
So it was just
how long was you with this company? I
was about to think the same thing.
Yeah, I need content for that. How long was you
at this point? I had freelanced for them for a year, so about a little over 3 years.
So 3 years.
Over 3 years.
So I just want to frame this for anybody that's listening. 3 years working for them.
3.
What's your title at this time?
At this time, I was an ACD, so associate director.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're an associate director, which means you're management level, high up on the food chain. You're not just the average worker. 3 years, almost 4 years working. You suffer a tragedy. You go back to work after being out, call it 3-4 months, and you work for 9 months, 3/4 of a year. And it takes not right when it happens, but it takes them 3/4 of a year to come back with some shit that was said 9 months ago and fire you.
It was ridiculous, but it was
that's insane.
So by the time it happened, my mentality was that this is sort of who they are. And there had been hints early on that this place was going to be a problem. And I ignored them because I saw an opportunity. This is something that sometimes people do. Like you walk into a bad situation, but you think you're going to be the one to fix it, or you're going to be the one to stay clean. You know, it's like it's raining. It's like you go outside, it's raining, and you think, all right, I got an umbrella. I ain't gonna get wet. You know what I'm saying? Like you see it, and you end up getting wet. Like, can't believe it. It's like, yeah, it's raining. Of course you're gonna get wet. And so there were things early on with the place that were kind of signals that this place could be a problem. But they had some big clients, and I saw an opportunity to do something on these clients that hadn't been done. And so I fixated on that. You know what I'm saying? I fixated on this opportunity to sort of do something that I could say, this is something I always wanted to do. They haven't done it yet. Once I do this for them, this is going to be major. And so I overlooked and tolerated a whole lot of stuff that I shouldn't have tolerated and that I shouldn't have overlooked, because I kept seeing that possibility, that business possibility, that branding possibility, that like, if I get to do that, that'll be worth it. And it wasn't.
That hits home, bro.
It wasn't.
Hold you. That hits home.
I think that resonates. Again, that's not your industry thing. I think that's in every industry thing, Hadji. As an individual, when you go to a job, real short and simple, right? You go in with, you're full of ambition, you're full of ideas, especially if you know, like, you're a hot shot, right? Like, you know, like I could really be one to change the game. And you go into it with a sort of mediocrity, not understanding that they don't even fucking care. You think that because, and we're programmed as children to believe that hard work equals success. This is what they program us with in school. Your hard work, no matter what your color, if you just work hard enough, it'll be all right. But more often than not, this is your story right now. The hard work meant nothing. The humanity aspect that your boss, like Jared said, you 1x me, you 100x me. I could have broke you off. It ain't in the contract, but it's called being a human being. You made me so much money. I know I'm only paying you minimal. What's me doubling your salary just for a little bonus? And it's not even a sneeze. It's the humanity aspect that's missing.
How you do business is a reflection of how you do life.
It's how you do life.
Yes, it is.
It's how you do life, Hadji. And like you said, you walked in, and I've done it. I'm not going to sit here and say I have not done it. And Jared has done it. We have walked in situations. I've worked for companies where I heard how the boss talk. I heard the way they did it, but I'm like, listen, I don't conduct myself the way these other bozos did. I do my job. I don't come in late. I do all the overtime. I'm thinking it's going to change for me. I'm with you. And when I get smacked in the face, like, we're not changing for you. This is the way we work.
And that's when it stings too.
It stings.
Yeah.
It stings. It stings. And I feel like as a culture, we're between a rock and a fucking hard place. How do you now make the decision, right? This is why, again, a lot of people don't choose to veer out and pursue their dreams, because a lot of the times when you pursue your dream, it's in private industry. When you pursue your dream, it doesn't have the security of a state job or a federal job. And you know that, like with a state job, you'd have been covered. You know that, right? With a state job, FMLA, all that federal, it would have been nothing they could have did with you with a good union. It would have been, you'd have got paid medical, nothing they could do with you. But when you step out for these higher salaries, for these bonuses, for this creativity that you feel like you're worth, this is the backside that it comes with. Unfortunately, you can work so hard for something and they can snatch it right away from you.
Yeah, I mean, that's, you know, I see a lot of, you know, when I told this story, saw some people came forward and said that they went through something similar, you know, at either in the same industry or in a different industry.
Crazy.
You know, some people it was, you know, and some people it wasn't as extreme as mine. It wasn't necessarily the death of a family member, but it was just, you know, pouring yourself into a job and then having everything taken from you, or you know, just unfair and unjust treatment. And there are so many people that are really going through that. And you know, I see it, you know, with us in our community, you know, more than anybody else. But it's a lot of people that are going through stuff like this. And I mean, the advice that I would leave people with is, number one is you really have to assess your priorities going in. You know, you got to go in real clear-eyed. You know, like we were talking about earlier, you know, whether, you know, when Jared was talking about, well, you know, they should break you off if you have a bonus. But to Chad's point, Chad's telling you up front, don't expect me to do that. Don't expect me to do that. And the mistake that I made, the mistake that I think other people made, was I looked at it and I said, all these things that I see wrong, with these guys, with the CEO, with the chief creative officer, with these clients, I can navigate that if I can pull this creative trick off, then the rest of that stuff won't matter. And I was old enough, I had been through enough, grizzled enough, I thought I was slick enough. I said, if I can thread this, you know, I'm nice enough. If I can thread this, it ain't gonna, you know, the rest of that stuff won't matter. And it did. You know, I needed to have a much more strategic mindset walking through that door to see them for what they were, and then know that I would have been better off. I'd have been better off going to probably any other place other than that. And
that's right.
And I had like another offer to go to another place that came later. And I would have been better off leaving there earlier to go to another place. But you don't get, obviously, you know, you don't get that time back. I don't get that time back with my wife. I don't get that time back with myself. You know, that time is gone. And people have to ask themselves, especially going forward with this economy, with this world, the way things are, is you have to ask yourself, what are you willing to lose? Not what can you gain, what are you willing to lose? Because you're going to lose something. You know, the big scripture most people know is what does it profit a man to gain the world and then to lose his soul? And we have to take
I gotta hit you with a message. That was deep, bro. Hadji, one more time. We need that one more time. You
know, what does it profit a man to gain the whole world only to lose his soul? And that is, you know, male, female, old, young, black, everybody else. It's, you know, people got choices to make. And I took the sexy choice. The cool choice was to go do this thing. The better choice would have been to go a different route, you know. And I think we have to. You can't. I don't expect the corporate world to change a whole lot. I see a lot of the stuff that people talk about that, and Lord knows I've talked enough about in terms of diversity and equity. You know, I've been fighting that fight off and on in advertising for 20 plus years. You know, just some of the stuff that I've seen that, you know, I've written about it. You know, I was at a place where somebody put a noose in my chair and I stayed. You know what I'm saying?
No way.
And I stayed. I stayed trying to fight. I
You had my curiosity, but now you have my attention.
You gotta tell us about that.
I had to tell you that one. Oh,
I mean, just real quick.
Real quick. Okay.
I know.
Quick
Yeah.
version of that.
Yeah.
You know what? I checked my file. I got a little more time than I thought.
Okay.
So.
All right. Perfect.
So we're good.
I'm sorry. That's just a crazy story. I'm sorry. Like,
yeah, that has to be told.
Yeah.
That has to be told.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
That real quick, I was at a joint where I was 22. I think I was 22 at the time. And I had been there. I think I had been there maybe 4 or 5 months. About somewhere between 4 or 5 months. And we had this chair. And it was like on the floor, there was a chair that was they had an office that was just for, it was really only being used by freelancers. But it had a real nice chair, a real nice office. It had one of those nice, dope leather chairs, right? And so people started fighting over using it. People would just, you know, whoever wanted the chair would just go take it, put it in, use it. And then one day I asked if I could use it. I asked the secretary if I could use it. So she said, cool, just replace it with yours. So I put it in my office. And then it just started this thing back and forth of people randomly taking the chair out of each other's office, you know? Mm-hmm. And so one day I took it back, and then my boss at the time, who was the brother I told you about earlier, one of the very few black chief creative officers at the time, he saw us going back and forth, like me and all these other people, and they said, well, just let Hadji have the chair. Just let him use it. I'll get everybody else chairs. Don't worry about it. So I took the chair, I put it in my office. And then one day I got up, I had gone to the restroom, got some coffee or whatever, came back, and I looked in the chair, and my office door was open. I had a real little office at the time. And so I opened the door, and there it was. It was just this big, like, you know, like rope twine, like thick noose. It was like a straight up, like old, like Western ass noose, man.
That's crazy.
So I just walked up, and I just looked at it, and I picked it up, and I'm like, this is a noose. And then so I went out and I asked the receptionist, I said, hey, has anybody been by here? Anybody been by here, been in my office? She said, nah, but I stepped out, so I don't know. And then so I just looked down the hall, and I'm just like looking around, and I'm like, there's maybe at the time, in terms of black folks, it was me. There was one other brother who was not, I don't think he was there that day, and I knew he didn't do it. And then that was it. It was everybody else there was like, it was one of the white dudes I worked with. Right. And so I said, well, I didn't really know what to do. So I called my mom. I called my mom, and I told her, and she just looked at me, and she said, well, what do you want to do? You know, and she had been through, you know, we had gone through it, you know, like I had seen the Klan when I was a kid, you know, we just came from some stuff, you know what I'm saying? Like, yeah. Like one of her really good friends growing up was Emmett Till. So,
wow.
Yeah. So
your mother knew Emmett Till personally?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. My mom, my aunt, they were all friends.
Wow.
Like I told you, we're from the South Side, West Side of Chicago. They knew him when he was like, they met him when he was like 12 and they were 14. They were a couple of years older than him. So they knew him, and my mom had talked to him like literally like the week before he went. He had never been to Mississippi. And so my mom talked to him like the week before he went down there. So, and that was the last time that she saw him. After that, she was, you know, like everybody started calling everybody, and it was, you know. Yeah, but so when it came to stuff like this, you know, my mom's mentality, my family's mentality was like, what are you gonna do about it? You know, because you could protest, you could cry, you could do this, you could do that, but you know, what are you gonna do about it? So she said, well, what do you want to do? And I just thought about it for a second. I said, I think I don't know why. I said, I think I'm gonna stay. I'm gonna stay. And she said, all right. She said, you know, basically let me know that she's gonna support me no matter what. So I said, all right. She said, well, what are you gonna do? I said, I'm just. So she said, throw it in the trash. So I took it and I threw it in the trash. And that was it. I had decided at that point that I knew a little bit about myself, that, you know, you get to a certain point where there's things you learn to keep your mouth shut about, you know.
Wait.
Hold on, Hadji. You muted yourself. Hold on.
Yeah, Mike.
Let me unmute you.
Yeah, I tried to. It says it isn't connected. There we go.
How about that?
There we go.
There you go.
All right, cool. So there were certain things about me that people that I worked with did not know, and that I did not really tell them, because I knew they would. I just knew how I knew how a lot of people saw me, right? So there were certain things about my background that I just kept on the low. And it was safe to say that I made a decision that if I ever found out who did that, they were going to have a problem. They was going to have a real problem. And I was going to take care of it outside of work. Nobody would know, but it was going to get handled. And I was never able to figure out who did it, because there were so many people. I could never narrow it down to more than about 4 or 5 cats. And I couldn't make that call based on, you know what I'm saying? You got to know. If you're talking about making that move, you got to know. Yeah. And I could never narrow it down to just enough. I couldn't figure out exactly who did it, but I made up my mind. It's like, if somebody pulls something like that again, it's like, I got to go back down that road.
Yeah, man. That's great, brother. Your story is
crazy. I'm being honest with you. I don't even know how to respond to that.
Yeah, I'm speechless.
I never expected to get from you. We understood, and we coming into this interview, you know, when we looked at your story, we understood what happened with White. We didn't even understand the Emmett Till situation. Now that you explained to me that your mother and your family were friends with Emmett Till and what happened to him, and now telling us about the new situation, and then it puts a whole different spin on.
Whole different perspective on the entire story.
On the entire story. Now, once again, right? The perspective of outside the gate looking in, inside the gate looking out. Now I'm looking at you like, my question is like, how did you even go back to work, Hodge? I'm being honest with you, right? The new situation, you know, your family, you know, knowing Emmett Till, what happened with your wife. How do you not only go back to work, but find the strength to not only go back to work, but go back to work in the same industry that you was in, that took you away from your family? That's my biggest question to you, because I don't know if I could have. I'm gonna be honest with you, bro.
That's real.
You know, my grief, I might, you know how some people, like, if a family member dies in the house, they can't stay in the house, or like a car, they can't own it. I just don't want to be there. That's my biggest question to you, honestly. Jared, you on mute if you talking. Oh, okay. I'm gonna just be honest. I don't know if I would have been able to process that. I think I could have went back to work, but doing the same exact thing, I'm gonna be honest. I don't know if I'd have had the strength to do that, bro. That's that.
I definitely couldn't.
I salute you for that, bro.
Definitely salute you, brother.
I salute you
for your strength, man.
Your strength and your prosperity, and I want to say your faith, because I believe like that got to come from.
You have to have a being.
Yes, that's really what it.
Faith to pull from that.
That's what it boils down to for me. I mean, the stuff when I was younger, that came from. I think that was also being somebody of faith. You know, really having, really being rooted in God, and also just a sense of wanting to. I don't want to say get out from where I was from, but I knew that. I think I knew that I was sort of strong enough to get through it, because some of the stuff was just petty, and some of the stuff was in some ways, some of them were soft. I'm like I knew that this is the only space you can do that in. you can't move like this and talk like this. Once we step outside this building, once we step outside these buildings, you're not built like that. So you might get me here, but
Right.
if I ever see you at like 9 o'clock at night, it's a different. Most of the people I worked with, especially the ones in Chicago, would never even come to the part of town I lived in. So
If I raise up, gonna be trouble.
So I knew that much about them, and I knew that and I would always, as much as they would aggravate me, in whatever city I was in, that was a fairly common thing. Is that the kind of the real parts of town, those people that worked in, they would never even go there. So yeah, that part sort of, I would always sort of laugh at myself. I would always kind of in myself, inside, just kind of laugh about that, because I'm like, outside of this, like,
shit is real.
This is real. Like, okay, you can talk crazy to me, like today, tonight, no. Today during office hours, you can talk crazy, but if I see you on the weekend,
for those listening to Hadji, especially for our allies and white people that may be watching and supporting the show, look at what we have to deal with as Black professionals.
Yeah.
On top of showing up, on top of doing our job, on top of listening to y'all, on top of habitating the space, all types of shit that we have to do, dressing, how you look at us, how you perceive us, all of this shit, and still have to perform at a high clip. And even if we do all of those things right, we still don't get the fair fucking shit.
I got a question for you, Hadji. I don't know if this is personal or not, but I just feel like I have to ask this, because we ask a lot of our guests this, and your story is so powerful that I gotta ask it to you, right? You lost your wife. I've never been married, right? I take marriage super seriously. Anybody that I'm involved with, I tell them one time, get married one time and one time only. If you're not, it's till death do us part, or we're not doing this. You lost your person that you promised to spend the rest of your life with.
Yeah.
Question to you is, when you went back to work, right? Especially so soon after losing somebody so dear to you, again, in the same industry, was that decision based on economics? Because at too many times we base our choices on our economic situation, right? Got to pay the mortgage, got to pay the lights.
Yeah.
If it's too personal, I can understand, but was the decision not to switch industries and pivot again? Because you went back to the same company. I understand at that time you didn't know, but you know what I mean? I'm just curious, because too many times I'm just telling, again, from personal situations, we make decisions based on our economic stability versus what we feel like is common sense, and we think we should do something different.
For me, I think it was, now coming up on, just passing like 2 years, it was a little bit of both.
Okay.
It was a little bit of economics, and it was a little bit of routine.
Okay.
And, when you're going through loss, like really deep, profound loss, there's a certain, you feel like everything's ripped out from under you, and you hold on to things that are familiar. And, that routine of staying at that particular job was, it was familiar. You know what I'm saying? That was what we had been through together. And, it was just getting back to that. And I told him I was coming back. I said, just give me a little bit of time, so a couple months, then I was back. And so it was a mix of that. And there was also there was definitely like a financial thing, because it was not, it wasn't something that was planned for. I mean, it's funny, like I was starting to plan for the other way. You start planning to say, I want to make sure that if something happens to me, that she's hooked up, she's taken care of, but neither one of us were looking at it from the other way. So there was a lot of shock, and there's still a little bit of shock. There's a lot of just wanting to have, a routine. And then there was, like I said, there was a little bit of financial, saying, okay, well, and there was also not really a lot of, at that point, next steps. Okay, so it's like, if not this, then what am I going to do? If not this, how am I going to spend my days if I'm not writing ads for this client or some client. And so
Imagine you trying to keep your mind busy too at the same
Yeah.
time.
Yeah,
Being in the house, you're like,
he's looking for consistency, bro. For the
Absolutely.
mindset process,
the
the
consistency, you're trying not to
Yeah.
fall
Yeah.
apart. You know?
facts. Yeah.
And you were saying, okay, until God tells me something specific, I guess I'm gonna keep doing this. And so I did, so like I said, I did that until I was told that, not gonna do that no more. So, so that was, that's to answer your question. It was a mix. It was financial, but it was also that sense of,
Can we call it normalcy? Can we call it normalcy for you?
Normalcy.
Yeah.
Like what you used to, right?
It's what I'm used to doing. So let's go back to doing that.
But even with that normalcy, like I'll just chime in just real quick. Even with that normalcy, I would think it would be hard because you also said your wifey said, "How can they talk to you like that? How can they treat you?" Like that?
It was.
So it's like, you know what I'm saying. So like off the strength, like you could have went either way. You could have been like, "Yo, F you guys," because she told me not to, and I would not do it off the strength of that. And it's like, but that's also what I was doing when I was. So it's how do you know what I'm saying? And that's a tough spot to be in, brother.
That's a very hard balance, Hadji.
That's
I'm gonna
a
be
very
honest.
hard balance, brother. That's tough.
It is, and I mean, and I don't even really.
Like Jared said, that's a hard balance, bro. That's a hard balance.
It's
a
balance. I give glory to God for that, man, because I really don't. Even though it hasn't been that long, even though it's still fresh, it still feels like there are certain days where it's like I don't even remember certain days, And I think that's something that everybody that I'm learning. I think anybody who's lost anybody can relate to. You're gonna have days where you don't even remember how you got through it. You don't even remember if somebody said, "What did you do on that Wednesday?" You're gonna be like, "I don't remember." It's not because it wasn't that important. It's just because you were just
going with the motions, going with the flow.
You was just going with it. So I had more than a few days like that where it was just kind of like, all right, let's turn this assignment in. Let's do this assignment. Next. Just like you said, normalcy, just trying to float through it. And I had a few days like that, man. I had a few weeks like that. And I think, I'm probably always going to have there's always going to be some of that, whether you lose a wife or a parent, or God forbid, a child, you're just going to have stretches where you're going to try to hold on to some sense of normalcy, some sense of, something that gives you hope that, that it's not completely over, So I have those days, and I still have days like that. And as that relates to work, I mean, the hard lesson you learn is that you definitely don't build your life around a job. Even if it's a job you love, even if it's a career that the thing you want to do since, I've met more than a few athletes and more than a few artists. And I think athletes are probably, and certain artists are probably the only people that the masses of us think have the job that they've always wanted. Like everybody else is doing the job on some level that this is the job you kind of have to do, or this is the job that seems that you can make some money doing. But you think of an athlete or a rapper or a rocker, you think, okay, that's the thing they always wanted to do. That's the thing they wanted to do since they were kids. That's the thing they worked at, that they practiced at. That was their dream. That's what they would be doing. If they could do it for free, they would still do that. But I think everybody else, we're picking things that this makes money for us. This will get me out of this situation. This will make me a good member of society. It's
opportunity. And hit it one more time, Jared. Hit it one more. Hadji, opportunity. I don't want to cut you off. We inner city kids. You from Chicago, we from the Bronx. We different sides of the same fucking coin, Hadji. It is opportunity, right? If the only opportunity that we have is ignorant shit, right? And we don't know anything different. The key is knowledge, right? We don't know anything different. And somebody presents us with an opportunity, it don't matter what it is. If it's something better than what we are doing in the moment, we are going to take it. So I believe opportunity plays a major role in this whole thing called life. And I just wanted to ask you this because I know you said expanding your family. You have kids, Hadji?
I do not. That was something we were talking about doing.
Okay, I remember you saying that. So I just wanted to ask you, did you guys actually have children or adopt a child and expand your family at all? That was a question.
We didn't get to do that. That was what, when I said expanded, that was something we had talked a lot about. That was one of our plans. So
right. Yeah, because and the reason that I asked you that, right? It's a reason behind that because we talk about me and Jared all the time, legacy, right? Hadji, you had a wife, you were building a family, you were working this hard, right? And this company wants you to give your soul, your lifeblood to this company.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, what do it's the question we ask ourselves is, what are we doing it for? We're not doing it for ourselves. Yeah, we want to live good, but what we really want to do is make sure that the generations coming up behind us can have at least 2 or 3 steps ahead of where we started. It doesn't mean that they're going to achieve what we achieved or greater, but it just means that we can try to give them a head start so that they're not at 0 or -2, right? Because the stigmatism is this, right? Like you said, 94% is white. The bottom line is this: us as black and brown people, we got to fucking work harder. We got to work smarter. We got to show up earlier to do the same fucking job and get judged even worse than our counterparts. That's the reality of the situation.
Message.
Indeed. That is definitely a lot of it. I mean, but I think for everybody, but particularly us, is that we have to look at the jobs that we do and have more perspective, about why we're doing it. And we got to move accordingly because, I was talking to Walt, and he told me how a friend of his, I want to get the story right. I think it was like a guy that he was really tight with, but also happened to work, under him, that when that guy passed away, he found himself like a week or 2 later having to put out an ad for his replacement. And that was just part of it. It was like,
wait, Gary, you know the story?
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. It was like, he's mourning a guy that he works with, that he's cool with, that's kind of, one of his guys. And then they told him basically, okay, well, we got to go find the guy who's going to do the job now. So that is something that, that job 9 times out of 10, like that, they're going to replace you. Everybody's replaceable. And so you got to decide what you want to give yourself to. I'm trying to, going forward, I'm trying to give myself to something bigger that's worth something. I'm a Christian, so I'm trying to give my life to the Lord, because that's going to be around. That's forever. This really ain't. But, in the here and now, I want to do stuff that just leaves a better, more healthier mark than just simply trying to sell somebody something. Yeah.
And I'm gonna be real with you, Hadji.
That's
You're doing it right now. That's why we created this platform, and that's why we wanted to have these stories, and that's why we call it more than a title. Fuck that title. You can be an asshole. You can be an asshole and CEO.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that because I like that.
That's real talk.
This is why he created it. This is why Jared created it, to be more than a title for your story, for stories like yours. He's being 100%
real.
He's telling you what it is right now, because he's been through this situation.
We lived it, bro. I lived it. I had to cut my hair for braids. I had to go through the ringer for promotions. I got fired a bunch of times. I got fired and I was a top performer at my last job. And that's why we started the business. I came to Cousin and said, I'm done with this shit. I'm done. I was the top performer.
How do you go from being one of the youngest VPs ever to do it? One of the youngest, which means they acknowledge your talent. Doesn't matter if you're 8, they acknowledge your talent. How do you go from being one of the top? When I say one of the top, we talking top 1, 2, or 3, not 5, 6, 7. We talking 1, 2, or 3. How do you go from being the top 1, 2, or 3 earner to being the next week we're gonna lay you off, but keep number 17? Number 17,
and that's what happened.
Crazy.
But even in my
Crazy.
first C-suite, I was in an agency, multi-million-dollar agency. I was the VP of sales. Guess what? I got stiffed on my commission 4 months in, brought a big deal in, got in an argument with the CEO, and I quit on the spot. Straight up and down, quit on the spot, no unemployment, no nothing. Had a couple $1,000s in the bank account and said, guess what? I'm young, I'm black, and guess what? I'm a C. I got this on my resume now. Nobody could take that from me. Guess what they said? Every white recruiter who I spoke to, you wasn't there. You was there for only 4 months, 5 months. Well, did you really do the job? Did you really do this? Did you really do that? When really, I just got effed out of a commission and had to stand on my morals. Didn't have to do anything with what I generated revenue-wise. But guess what? How many after that? I had to go back to always being an account executive and work that shit back up. Did that and did it with a smile on my motherfucking face.
After you already hold on. The real content is he already worked his way up the ladder the first fucking time. He didn't get put as executive off the back. He worked his fucking way up the ladder the first time. Got to C-suite level, got knocked back down, and then worked his way back up.
All right.
That's the content behind that.
And that's why it's more than a title, because you might see me on my title, it's account executive or whatever, senior account executive. Guess what? We know this shit. We could talk with the best of them. And guess what? I want to know the CEOs. I want to know, what did you sacrifice to get there? I want to know if your route was different than mine and my brothers and sisters who's coming behind us. I want to know exactly what's going on. And I want to have a real conversation. We've spoken to people like, your story is incredible, bro. Like, I'm going to drop the 10 twice on this shit. I'm keeping it real, yo.
I had to put my glasses back on.
Real talk.
I had to put my glasses back on, Hadji, because I told Jared before if I'm lying, tell me. I said, Jared, I might cry on this motherfucking podcast.
Real shit.
Real shit. No, it's not a laughing matter. This is real, Hadji. We are huge on family. My family, Jared is my fucking family. Like, we are blood. You understand?
I can see that with y'all.
Look at me, right? But let me tell you something. We not fake fucking family. We are always together. We always at. Let me tell you something. We not a family that comes together for funerals. We are at it might be a Friday, we at somebody's house for a barbecue or a fish fry, or it might be a Tuesday. We don't wait for somber moments to come together and act like fucking family. We are family 24/7 through the good times. We go fishing together, jet skiing, we go on vacations, the bad times. You understand? We are family through and through. So when we heard about your story, because we are such avid family members, it affected us like to the core.
Facts.
To the core, Hadji.
I appreciate that.
To the core, Hadji. And that's why
it's going to change. And it's going to change somebody else's perspective that's watching this right now, that's busting their ass, going through some shit and saying, you know what, it's not working.
Yeah, man.
I'm not going to do that. And we need to hear those stories, bro. And that's why I'm so appreciative.
You know why we need to hear them, Jared? Because you can always get another fucking job. Hadji cannot replace the woman that he loved passing away, bro. And him not being for her. You cannot replace that, bro. The house, the cars, any fucking thing else he can replace. He cannot replace that woman and what she meant to him and what she gave him. He cannot replace that.
That is the truth.
And that's why we didn't want to cry on this show, but I don't give a fuck. Your story is phenomenal, Hadji, and people need to hear what this fucking workforce and this economic living does to people and their families and their real life decisions that you have to make for this shit. For the money, for the lifestyle, just trying to survive.
I mean, you're gonna see more and more of that. I mean, when I wrote that, I was surprised by the amount of outreach I got. I heard from people from just every part of the country, and I heard from people in other countries that read it and they heard about it, and they were just. And there are so many people that are going through that sense of, what are we working for? What are we putting all this time in just to have somebody just say, okay, we don't need you no more. Or worse, you have it where it's not even a money thing. Sometimes it's just a bad boss or a bad company. It's like, you didn't sacrifice this, whether it's family or just your own sense of, what you believe in. And then when it's over, it's over. So I think you're seeing I'm going to call it a slow reset. Not a quick reset or a hard reset, but a slow reset where people are starting to look and go, there's got to be a better way.
There's got to be. And there is, man. And it's us sharing our story, sharing that information, sharing that knowledge, sharing those experiences with each other to make it be like, yo, I'm not going through that door, because that's what happened. My brother went through that door.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And that's what this is about, bro. And I feel like, yo, I'm going to keep it real, yo. I'm going to tell you right now, this was one of the most powerful episodes we've ever had.
No, this is crazy.
This is the most powerful. I've heard stories from cancer survivors. I've heard like Walt's story. We've heard some Paxton Baker growing up as a youngest of 7 to now being a owner of a sports. We've heard crazy ass stories that we've never anticipated. Yeah. And this one, bro, it hurts me. It touches me to the core. To the core, bro. Like real shit, man. And we just appreciate you, brother. And you got brothers here now, man.
Oh, no doubt. I feel that way, man. I feel that way. I love what y'all are doing. I mean, when you reached out, I was like, if anything yet, I was like, you know what, let me see. And then I started looking in, y'all. You know what, this could be good.
Appreciate
so I feel like I'm 2 young, really talented, smart brothers. And you know, outside of this, we definitely got to keep in touch, and you know.
And mandatory.
We extend the invite to every guest, bro. But we're gonna start the group chat right after this. But anytime you're in New York, you got brothers, you got family in New York. Tell us what you got a taste for. We go get some soul food. What you want to do? We get a couple cold ones. Whatever you want to do, you tell us.
Let me say this to you, and I mean this from the bottom of my heart, man. Jared made a very valid point, and now I could tie back into what Jared said, right? When Jared is talking about changing the culture, about how people can come up with ideas and monetize later, and you know, bosses can do this and do that. It starts with this right here. It starts with these type of conversations, because what we are missing as a culture is fucking-mation. It's the information on understanding of how to go about getting a job, how to go about negotiating getting a job, and how to go about valuing yourself and giving that value and showing that value to a fucking company and saying, this is what I'm worth and this is what I want, man. We got to have more of these conversations. If we have more of these conversations, then we change the culture one by one. And then situations like Jared was talking about earlier, they become normalcy. They become normal.
That is really, that's a big thing. You know, to mention this again, going forward, I know I said this earlier, but going forward, there are so many brands and so many companies that when they're looking at their budgets, you know, for 2024 and 2025 and going forward, they are going incredibly digital heavy and social influencer heavy and content heavy. And that's going to be the future, you know, because that's not even going to be the future. That is the future. That's now. You have, you know, and Jared, you paid attention to business, so you've seen the shift towards digital over the last probably 5, 10 years or what have you, and it's not going to stop. And so what that's going to cue, because of the barriers of entry are so low, is there are so many young, particularly Black African American, you know, content creators out there, whether you're doing podcasts or stories or, you know, whatever kind of videos that you're doing, where there's ways to own that stuff, to monetize it, to do brand deals, do endorser deals, and really generate, you know, kind of a real independent platform that can make us, you know, a substantial amount of money, more than you can make in a regular job, so that you're not in situations that, you know, that some of us have been in. And one of the things that, you know, would take a longer podcast to discuss is just really taking ownership of the content that you create going forward, and taking ownership of and understanding how to build a content business and really monetize things and really control, you know, the images of how we see ourselves, and that we're not just putting out just the lowest common denominator for clicks and for clout, but that we're creating substantial content that really shapes conversations about us and what we want to do, how we want to see ourselves going forward.
Message.
But also only so that when a client shows up and says, you know, would you like, you know, some free product, you know, do all this work for us for some free product, you know enough about the business to go, nah, we got to have an equitable deal. We got to have an equitable partnership, and to know how to do that, and then know how to build off of that. That's going to be a huge challenge going forward. It's not just going to be working for a company. It's going to be, I'm trying to start a company. I'm trying to start more than a title, you know?
Yeah.
And I'm trying to build something that's sustainable, because we need more than we need more of what y'all doing and less shade rooms. You know what I'm saying? We need more of this and less of the other nonsense that's out there.
Yeah, ball up. Yeah. Anyway, and that deserves that's it. You know what I'm saying? Period. Over.
I'm not gonna say no more. I know I was talking a lot on the show. I want to make this promise to the fans. Listen to me right now and hear me clearly, right? Me and Jared, it is our life mission to change the fucking game. Hear me clearly out my fucking mouth. This platform right here, we don't give a fuck about what nobody else is doing. When we are done with this platform is going to be something. It's going to be a first of its kind. We giving back and we going to change the fucking game. It ain't going to be no more of that fucking running, chasing your tail in circles and doing all that. We going to give you the content. We going to give you the information, and we bringing all this shit to your front door, and we giving it away for free for the culture, because that's what we doing. More than the title, that's what we doing. That's what we got the platform for. That's what we doing, man. Be clear. That's what we created this for, and we unapologetically doing it. We unapologetically doing it. Be clear on that.
And on that note, man, let's take it home with this one. Hadji, I do let you know you got to invite whenever you want.
Oh man, listen.
Whenever you ready, whenever you want to come back, brother. It's all love, man. I'm gonna start the group chat right after, man. But we appreciate you, brother. Like real talk, man. I thoroughly enjoyed this conversation. I learned a ton from you, bro. I feel like I know you now. More than anything, the work stuff, I know you now, bro. And you have brothers here in the Bronx, man. And anything we can do to help you, man, we on deck.
Absolutely.
Well, I appreciate it. This was, this wasn't what I expected it to be, but I'm glad it went this way, man. This is
that's why we have this. And like again, Jared formed this platform, and we tell all our guests, this is what we come here for, right? It's unscripted. Yeah. I know some interviews go an hour and a half, some go a little longer. We told you that because we want you to just come here and we want to just have a conversation. We don't want scripts. We don't want to just punchline. We don't want sound bites. We want to talk to you like we care, because we actually fucking care. And we want to get this message out because there are so many people that are living your life right now, including us, that have to make these hard decisions. Family versus economics. Family versus economics.
No doubt.
Right?
No doubt.
And it's only until they hear of other stories like this that they can relate to it and get the information that they need, that they can make different decisions. If we keep allowing our people to have the same information, they're going to keep making the same decision. And we see that the same decision is wrong every time.
That's it. Message. Off on a message, y'all, man. This was a great episode of More Than the Title, y'all, man. Y'all. Thanks for the check. I'm getting a bunch of texts right now. I'm getting a bunch of texts right now. Like, yo, bro, this is crazy. This is crazy. So, y'all, next time, stop texting me. Put this shit in the chat. Stop playing with me.
I just want to say to you, man, I appreciate you, brother. Right, from me to you, from black man to black man. Right, I appreciate you.
Sir.
For not only holding on to your faith, right? But you could have very easily fell off the wagon. You know what I'm talking about, right? And did a bunch of different shit with the circumstances. Look, that's my godson right there. That's my godson. You on mute, Jared. Right. You on mute. He ready to start a YouTube channel.
You gonna take us home?
Say what's up. Take us home.
Say what's up. You want to say thank you? Say thank you for listening to More Than the Title.
Come on. No. You want to be no shyness. Don't be shy now. You live.
Come on, man. You can do it.
Come on, say thank you for showing. Thank you for tuning in. Say it.
Tell them see you next week.
Yeah.
Seen it all, heard it all. Oh, what you know about me? I done it all. Just one.